The first day of fall and a Christmas in the air. We're at Wrigley Field in Chicago. As you might expect, it's cold, it's windy, and this weekend series continues. The St. Louis Cardinals and the Chicago Cubs in Game 2. And welcome to Cardinals Baseball with my partner today, Rick Horton. I'm Dan McLaughlin. And the Cardinals, Rick, have to find a way to bounce back after a disappointing and devastating loss yesterday.
Yeah, the good news is that Chris Carpenter was back yesterday. With the Cardinals' loss and everybody else winning, things have gotten tighter in that wild card.
And it means that it's a big start today for Adam Wainwright.
He's the guy you want out there. Adam Wainwright has not been at his best in his last few starts, but he finds a way to be a big game pitcher.
It's a lefty, Travis Wood, getting the start. The former Cincinnati Red now pitching for the Cubs. It's a battle for the wild card. The Brewers and the Cardinals, but we've got the Cubs today.
Baseball on Fox Sports Midwest is brought to you by Budweiser. Great times are waiting. Grab some buds. By your Mid-America Chevy dealers, the #1 selling brand in St. Louis. Find us at stlchevy.com. By Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers, #1 for quality tires and expert auto service. And by Steak and Shake. Steak and Shake, just no equal. We saw yesterday that the wind was not blowing out, but it is today, and blowing hard, especially to right center and down the right field line. And Rick, as you well know, having pitched in this ballpark, we could see a crazy game this afternoon.
Yeah, the wind's always a factor. The outfielders are the ones that have the worst of it, Dan, trying to judge not only the wind, but also the sun here. And it can be very difficult during day games, and the outfield play is paramount here at Wrigley always.
So Adam Wainwright gets the start against this lefty, Travis Wood. And Wood is 6-12 this year with a high ERA, 44 walks, strikeouts at 106, and today is his 24th start.
He should be a 4th or a 5th starter in a normal rotation, but the Cubs are basically calling him their #1 right now because they've lost so much of their rotation. He likes to pitch inside to right-handers. They're trying to get him to be more effective on the outer half as well, but he likes that cutter in on righties.
His season began at AAA Iowa as we flash back, and we have seen him before. This is on July 27th, and the wind was blowing out this day, but with some of these swings, it didn't matter. Travis Wood gave up 5 home runs. Matter of fact, we saw many of those on that Budweiser porch because Fox Sports Midwest had our sponsors out there, and some of them took home souvenirs.
Yeah, they caught a couple of them. I think one of them almost hit you, didn't it? If I remember correctly.
Real close. So I remember that start quite well.
I remember you running away from the ball. That's how I remember it.
Scared. Jay Beltran Holiday, then Craig Molina Freeze, Descalso Cosma, and the pitcher Adam Wainwright.
And Dan, good, we can laugh after the loss yesterday. A really tough loss for the Cardinals, and we'll see if they can jump on Wood here early in this game and give some support for Adam Wainwright. The Cardinals really frustrated with that loss yesterday and trying to get back on track.
So John Jay leads it off. He's got good numbers from the leadoff spot and against this lefty. Jay is 5 for 9 against Travis Wood. 60 hits, second best in the National League the last 2 months. As he looks at a pitch low and hitting .311 from the leadoff spot this year, overall at .308. A lot of numbers to take in, but they're all very good and positive for John Jay.
Well, the numbers reflect his ability and his effort in 2012. He's been a .300 hitter at the plate as a big leaguer, but I think he's learned to get the deeper counts, and he's acting more like a leadoff hitter.
1-1 pitch. That's tapped foul. We saw that in his first at bat, game 1 of the series yesterday. Fan with a souvenir. Thanks to Chris Maloney, the first base coach. Yesterday, one of the worst losses of the year for St. Louis. And we've had a lot of those late inning games and extra inning affairs in which the Cardinals have not won as Jay slaps it towards the Cubs bullpen.
Saw Alfonso Soriano in left field checking the sun as well. He's playing around with his hat and the glasses, just trying to make sure he's going to get an ability to see the ball off the bat. Again, the wind's going to be a factor today. I think it was yesterday as well.
Knocking balls down.
Really was. Cubs outfielders were confused by it because the ball had been carrying of late, but it sure didn't yesterday.
Saw Volstead in the first inning yesterday with 37 pitches. Cardinals let him off the hook. Here's a 2-2 pitch as they set up outside. Spoiled by Jay. Boy, you love to see this kind of leadoff at bat.
Two first-year managers at work in this series, Dale Swain and Mike Matheny.
The 2-2 pitch. Just missed. John Jay yesterday, first at bat, saw 12 pitches. This will be pitch number 8 on its way. The 3-2 pitch by Travis Wood. Strikeout of Jay. He thought he had ball 4. And that's how we start the game. The defense is Soriano, De Jesus, and Sapelt in right. Bitters, Castro, Darwin Barney, the hero from yesterday, Anthony Rizzo at first. Wellington Castillo is behind the plate. And around the horn is brought to you by Dobbs. Travis Wood is your starter on the mound, the 25-year-old. Strike 2, Beltran. So many things you think about in the game yesterday that as a manager, hindsight being 20/20, you will be second guessed. That's part of the job.
No question. That's what you sign up for.
And one of those question marks was seeing Beltran sacrifice in that first inning. Mike Matheny went to his bullpen an awful lot. The use of David Freese. If you win, all is forgotten. When you lose, it sticks out like a sore thumb. Here's a 1-1 pitch.
Mike Matheny celebrating a birthday today, turning 42. And he needs a nice present today with a Cardinal win after the rough day yesterday. Mike was asked about that Beltran bunt yesterday and refused to say whether he did it on his own or whether or not it was a sign. He would not comment on that bunt.
Here's a 2-2 pitch to Carlos Beltran. 2 up and 2 down via the strikeout looking.
Paints that outside corner. That's the corner they want him to work a little more. Normally you have to convince a pitcher to pitch inside, especially a left-hander. But Wood likes to do that, and they're trying to convince him to get a pitch that he can use effectively on that outside corner, and we just saw one there.
I would have to say there's more red in the seats than we see blue.
I would agree.
2 outs, nobody on for Matt Holliday. Little tardy with that swing. The bleachers are full today. No balls and 2 strikes. Travis Wood, not a big guy. He's 5'11", 175. He is from Little Rock, Arkansas, originally signed by Mike Keenan. No, not that Mike Keenan.
I was going to say that Mike Keenan.
Nope, not that guy. Here's the 0-2 pitch.
That guy being the Blues, former Blues and other team hockey coach for a long time.
Vancouver, Florida, New York, where he won the Cup, and the list goes on and on.
He just needed to be a little more strong-minded.
Here's a high fly ball out to center. De Jesus makes the catch, and the Cardinals go in order. Adam Wainwright gets the start when we come back. For Chicago, De Jesus, Barney, and Rizzo, followed by the cleanup man Soriano. 104 RBIs for Alfonso Soriano. Castro, then Castillo, Sapelt, Bitters, and Wood. This lineup will face the big righty, Adam Wainwright for St. Louis.
And we like to talk about Wainwright's fastball and the ability he has to establish it. And the 13-13 record on the line today. The ERA has gotten under 4. But for Waino, we all know about how good his curveball is, and he's developed a cutter that he likes to use as well. But the fastball and his ability to get ahead with it and get some outs with it is still the most important pitch when you study an outing for number 50.
David DeJesus, Cardinals elected late in that game to pitch to him, and they got burned. Runner at third, and he drove in the winning run in the 10th. The celebration was on. Here's the 0-1 pitch. Hit down the right field line. It is hooking, and that ball is foul. And not by much. 0-2. DeJesus, fourth in the league. .364 on-base percentage from the leadoff spot. Appearing for the 141st time out of the 152 that the Cubs have played.
Even though he was down 0-2 in that at-bat against Joe Kelly before he hit the game winner, it looked as if he was right on Kelly and had some good swings.
Let's talk about Kelly. Boy, he was throwing hard out of the bullpen yesterday. For fans that didn't see it, we saw him get to 99 on the gun.
And even the ones below that just popped. Good movement, good life. And he gets the loss in that game, but you still have to be excited about the stuff of Joe Kelly. And you're going to give up a run now and again. He shouldn't have been in that situation. The Cardinals should have won it long before Joe Kelly was pitching in the 11th.
1 ball and 2 strikes. Just underway here at Wrigley Field in Chicago. A cold, windy day this first day of fall. Ground ball to the right side. Moving to his right and making the play, Daniel Descalso. Take a look at the defense with Holiday, Jay, and Beltran. David Freese back in there this afternoon. Behind the plate, Yadier Molina. Around the horn is brought to you by Dobbs.
Descalso slipped a bit on that ground ball. There's David Freese back in the lineup at third base.
Here's Darwin Barney. Big game for Darwin in game 1. Sensational play defensively and also the game-tying home run in the 9th. Oh, and 2. Speaking of David Freese, Mike Matheny asked about sitting him out stretch run, and the term that he uses, rewarded. He said we've been rewarded when we've sat Carlos for a time and they come back refreshed, refocused. He said we've seen that with David Freese as well. This is the most he's ever played in professional baseball in one season. So a guy like him, more so than maybe others that have been through this stretch run, that's why we sat him yesterday. Here's the 0-2. Darwin Barney, 9th inning. And this is off Fernando Salas with 2 strikes on him. Tied it up with a 2-run homer. And how about this play that he made right after that? And the athleticism of Rizzo on the receiving end. Barney with a fly ball into right center. Jay calling for it. He has it for the out. Our keys to the game, relievers used yesterday, and for the Cardinals, well, it's something that Mike Matheny was questioned about. It's brought to you by Toyota.
Yeah, 93 pitches for the Cubs, 94 for St. Louis, and it was a classic September game or spring training game. Take your pick. That's what happens in both those situations. You've got a lot of guys out there, so you tend to use them all. And I think the question that we have is, with Shelby Miller and Trevor Rosenthal available to go longer in the game yesterday, what you ended up doing is using 6 guys with a short bullpen yesterday. And now you have to deal with the results of that again today. So you're hoping that Wainwright can make that a moot point by going deep into this game.
Rosenthal, it was just 1 pitch. Miller, a short outing. But again, these are guys that have been trained as starters, especially Miller. There's a shattered bat coming on Cosba. He makes the catch, and a good start for Adam Wainwright. It's Craig, Molina, and Freese due up when we come back. Cubs and Cardinals, historic Wrigley Field, the rivalry that's been around for years, decades, back and forth that they have in the bleachers. Always a little fun here at the ballpark. Here's Alan Craig. I talked to Alan after the game last night, Rick, and I said it looked to me like you should have had 2 home runs. Wind knocked it down. And he said the first one, he said, I absolutely crushed it. And he said it stayed in the ballpark. He said, I even thought I had the wind beaten on that one, but here he was at the team hotel after a 4-hour plus game, working out in the team hotel after the game. Dedicated to his craft, and you love to hear about that and see it. And that's one of the reasons why he's considered one of the top young hitters in baseball.
And
his work ethic.
And he's the 6th best hitter in the National League as of today. He has qualified in terms of his plate appearances, so not counting Melky Cabrera, which as of yesterday we no longer do. He is now the 6th best hitter batting average wise in the National League. You know, that when he crushed the center, the hardest ball that I ever saw from 60 feet 6 inches away, Jody Davis hit here in Wrigley Field, and it was a F8 medium depth center field, and that ball without the wind blowing in would have been a 500-foot home run.
Is that right?
Oh yeah, it was crushed, absolutely crushed. So I know that feeling, and Alan Craig found out yesterday. But the flip side is when the wind's blowing out, and they estimate that here, I think 20% of the time it blows out roughly, it's a whole different story. Then you're just trying to hit a fly ball anywhere.
Two balls and 2 strikes. And it's up the middle, past Barney, and into center field. Leadoff base hit for Alan Craig. Do you think that there's the Plaza Tire Service replay? Managers that have been here for a while and have to play half their games here design a lineup for the ballpark, meaning if it's blowing out, I'm going with power hitters, or maybe I look at my bullpen and say I don't want that fly ball pitcher coming in.
Well, that's a very interesting question and conversation, and talking it over with Len Casper before the game. He said that the Cubs have gotten to the point where they've actually given up trying to tailor their team to this ballpark. For years they tried to do that, and it hasn't really seemed to work. So at some point they've just kind of said, you know, I think the best thing to do is for us to just get the best players and the best pitchers we can find going forward and have them adapt to playing here at Wrigley Field. Used to be that the question was, how do the Cubs win with no lights in all the day games? Now it's still a lot of day games here. And then you've got the weather factors. But at some point, half the games are on the road. You still want to have the best players. And you can almost overthink it a bit, Dan, including the lineup on a daily basis when you're at home.
Theo Epstein, you know, with his background in Boston, he grew up as a Red Sox fan. He knows all about Fenway Park and maybe tailoring a lineup to the monster. And you wonder if some of that would carry over at all to here with Wrigley and the wind blowing in or out.
But I think the Red Sox even got to that point where they kind of stopped worrying about it. At some point they said, well, you can't have a left-handed pitcher in Fenway. You just can't get one. Well, Lester's been okay. So I think at some point you just realize, hey, if he can pitch, I don't care if it's Fenway or Camden Yards or Yankee Stadium.
Theo Epstein, and he is not the general manager of the Chicago Cubs. He oversees everything and certainly has a hand in player development and what's happening here, but he is hooked up with guys that he's been with Boston, that went to San Diego, then came back here in Chicago, and he's giving them hope. I mean, they've tried a lot of different things obviously over the years and what they want to do to win. They were so close with Dusty Baker, and in many ways that came down to pitching, as we talked about yesterday with Mark Pryor, Kerry Wood, Maddox, Zambrano. That's a great staff. a team should win, whether the wind is blowing in or out. The lineup was very good. Now David Freese with 1 out. 2 balls and no strikes.
I've come to believe, Dan, that when you think about the sabermetrics general managers, the new young breed, you talk about Billy Beane or Theo Epstein, whoever you want to throw into that, I don't think that they're really establishing anything that's necessarily new. They're just marketing it better and leading it. And in the age of information, you have to be able to communicate it with numbers and communicate it to a new generation. And I don't really think, I don't think Billy Beane has thought of anything that people didn't know already. But he packaged it and communicated it, and the Oakland A's got better. And I think that's what the job is here in Chicago.
Daylight today is tailor-made for David Freese. Blowing out to right center, right field. His power that way. See him doing some damage at some point this afternoon. 3-1 the count. Ivy is starting to turn color just a bit. Cold here in Chicago. A short lead at first by Alan Craig. The 3-1 pitch to Freese. 3-2. One out runner at first. Craig not running, and the pitch is taken high. First walk issued by lefty Travis Wood, who has struck out 3 thus far. Descalso, some very good at bats that we saw yesterday. A double that drove in a run.
Almost had another one.
Exactly. They had actually moved back a few feet to Jesus, the center fielder, and made the play following the double in his follow-up at bat. So runners at first and second. Descalso looks at a strike. Daniel this year is batting .220. 4 home runs. He's driven in 23.
Cardinals are 9 games over 500, Dan, and when they were building that little cushion, which really happened kind of early in the season and towards the first couple of months, they were putting up a lot of big numbers offensively and taking advantage of situations just like this, not leaving runners on base, the home run, the double, the extra base hits with runners aboard. Counted for those 3-4 run innings, and that's why they won. They won a lot of games 8-1, 10-1 in the early going. We haven't seen very many of those of late.
Lewis and Dan Kurtz are here from St. Louis. Want to say hi to family and friends back home watching on Fox Sports Midwest. That pitch is taken low. It's a very good opportunity here for Descalso. 2 balls and 1 strike. Here's a 2-1. 2-2. Trying to turn this franchise around with an ownership group that began in October of 2009. The Ricketts family ending the run of the Tribune Company. Popped up left side. The wind playing tricks on that, and it's dropped. You could just see that coming as Vitters was over. And initially you thought that that ball was going to wind up in the seats. The wind is blowing, brings it back into territory to make this catch, and he just flat out dropped it.
You wonder whether the wind or the sun came into play or both, but either way, a break for St. Louis. That ball hits in the palm of his hand. He can't squeeze it. And as we said, this is a very, very tough field on certain days when the weather is a factor.
They get that second chance at this level, they don't miss. Usually. Fouled back by Descalso. Vitters is a guy that's been working very hard with Pat Listash, part of the staff. Former major leaguer. Defensively, they're trying to figure out what they have in him and to see if he can't be an everyday third baseman as they rebuild.
It's going to be an error on Vitters for prolonging the time at bat.
And that's off the end of the bat, and the ball will find you. Everybody is safe. An infield hit for Descalso. All kinds of English on that baseball off the end of the bat. And Daniel Descalso picks up the Cardinals' second base hit.
That adds insult to injury from Vitters' point of view, that he drops the ball, then he has to come in and get it, so it's still in his hands again. So all things pointing to Vitters for making this a potential rally for the Cardinals. Kozma had a big at-bat in the game yesterday that turned into a ground out to third with the bases loaded. The Cardinals didn't extend their lead in that inning. And he has another bases loaded opportunity here this afternoon. At the time, we didn't think much of it, Dan. It was the fifth inning. Cardinals were leading. But you just don't get very many opportunities. You have to cash in.
So bases loaded for Pete Kozma. And that's inside again. 2 balls and no strikes.
That's that fastball in that he likes.
And the pitch in to the right-handers or away to the lefties has not been called a strike thus far by our home plate umpire. The pitches away to the righties have been. Here's a 2-0 for Kozma. Way outside. 3-0 to count.
Not normally an advocate of this, but considering the stress of this situation, I would say go ahead and take a couple of strikes. Not just one, but 2.
And that's inside. The Cardinals have grabbed the early lead 1-0 on a bases loaded walk to Pete Kozma as he picks up his third ribby of the year.
Was indeed inside. Again, that's the side of the plate that Wood likes to work. Just kind of runs that ball in on right-handers. And he better be careful with this guy, too. Wainwright has swung the bat better the last few starts.
Much better. Wainwright does have a home run this year. That was against the Mets, that day game at Busch Stadium. Adam takes a pitch in, and now time is called. Travis Wood cannot find the strike zone. Already 44 pitches from the lefty.
You want to know the difference between pitchers and hitters? Classic example right here. Hitters are saying, wow, this is great. A wonderful opportunity to swing the bat because the pitcher's afraid of missing again, so I'm going to be aggressive and swing the bat. And the pitcher's saying, boy, I hope they swing the bat because I can't throw a strike and maybe they'll hit a line drive at somebody.
Question becomes now, do the Cardinals say to Adam Wainwright, take another? He's walked 2 in the inning. Bases are loaded.
I'd let him swing here.
And a 1-1 pitch. Looks at strike 2. Adam didn't agree with that. Chevy Fox Tracks shows it's just a bit outside and low. So 1 ball and 2 strikes here on Adam Wainwright. Travis Wood, acquired by Chicago, 4-player deal in December. Last year, 11-10 with Cincinnati. He was actually their opening day starter a season ago. The 2-2 pitch. Fouled straight back and a good cut.
Very good swing from Wainwright. Right on it.
The 2-2. Foul back again. Wrigley Field is starting to fill up here this afternoon. Late arriving crowd in Chicago on a cool afternoon. That part of the ballpark that you see is in the shade, and it is cold there. The 2-2. Inside. So here we go again. A 3-2. This time on Wainwright.
That plate starts dancing around on you every once in a while, and what seems like an easy thing to do to throw a strike gets a lot tougher when you start squeezing the baseball.
Wainwright pulls it foul.
Wood only has 44 walks in nearly 140 innings, so control not normally an issue for him.
The 3-2. Got him. Wainwright strikes out. Travis Wood strikes out his second in this inning, number 4 overall. Cardinals have made him work here early. That's 50+ pitches as Chris Bosio is on the bullpen phone. They don't like what they see, and somebody is starting to get up and get loose.
Cardinals had Chris Volstead on the ropes yesterday, and they weren't able to finish him off. He got a little deeper in the game than you might have thought after watching the first 2 innings.
John Jay struck out first time. This strike zone is tight. Castillo, Lendy Castillo, right-handed pitcher, begins to loosen in the Cubs bullpen.
A little surprised there's action so early.
1 ball and 1 strike.
I wonder if there's some other reason going on here. Maybe Wood had been dealing with some physical issue we're not aware of. To have a reliever up after throwing 94 pitches out of your bullpen a day before, and it's only 1-0 in the second, that's a bit surprising.
The mindset, though, change in the month of September.
Yeah.
1-1. Ground ball to the right side. Rizzo dropped it, and Wood is there to cover the bag at first. The Cardinals, though, pick up a run. RBI by Pete Kozma. Bases loaded, walk. Fox Sports Midwest is proud to support the Buddy Funds Charity Golf Tournament. October 9th includes a blues roundtable featuring Darren Pang and John Kelly. The Buddy Fund was founded 50 years ago by former broadcaster and Cardinal Buddy Bladner. Supplies sports equipment to at-risk and handicapped children. For more information, go to buddyfund.org. Good stuff. So here is Alfonso Soriano. 104 RBIs for Soriano. The crazy thing is, to an extent, Rick, they can't trade this guy. His name was talked about as a player that could be had for the right price. Maybe the trades were there, but maybe the right price wasn't coming back.
Yeah, but he's been around so long that you look at those numbers and then they kind of come back and say, well, maybe we don't want to trade him. He hasn't made an error this year in left field. He's become adequate. He's gotten used to Chicago's crazy weather here at Wrigley Field, and he's putting up the numbers again. Now, he's not stealing bases like he used to, and he's kind of in between. He's not really a leadoff hitter and not really a cleanup hitter either, I wouldn't say.
The fly ball, right field. It's Beltran who has it for the out. So Soriano retired, 4 up and 4 down to start the afternoon for Adam Wainwright. Here's Starlin Castro, the youngest All-Star in the history of the Chicago Cubs. He was named an All-Star at the age of 21. Outstanding talent. They've locked him up long-term. It's one of the first real long-term investments by Theo and his crew. Milwaukee is playing Washington today. Bottom of the second. There's no score. Baltimore, a key game for them. Top of the second. They lead Boston 2-1. Ichiro has been on fire for the New York Yankees as they lead the Oakland A's. He's homered today. 2-1. Out to left. It's well hit. And it sticks in the ivy and then pops out. Castro on his way to second base. The first hit of the afternoon for the Cubs. It's a double. Standing up for Starlin Castro.
That ball had a little bit of top spin on it. Thankfully, he hit that ball very hard but didn't get it elevated. There's the drive. Castro has a little bit of power, some speed, and we talked yesterday about the number of errors that he's had at shortstop, but very gifted young player, and investing in a player like that, you're looking for somebody who's got elite status and you think is going to be able to produce year after year to build around him, and I would say that was a good choice.
Wellington Castillo. Giovanni Soto was traded away. Castillo seeing the bulk of the playing time at catcher for the Cubs. Outfield is straight away. Nice block by Yadi. Now, when you look at Castro, you see a guy that's a great talent as he stands at second base. 25 errors this year, but they feel that he's really improved here in the second half of the season defensively. Good range, flashes of brilliance, but the erratic arm. Broken bat. Wainwright looks back. Castro, and Castillo is retired for out number 2.
The right reaction by Wainwright, just in case Castro had read that that ball was hit to the right side and took off for third. Like Joe Kelly yesterday on a bunt attempt, you always have the time to check on that lead runner, and I like a pitcher to do that. Just check on that lead runner, then you can always adjust, get your feet right, and you get the guy at first.
Right fielder Dave Chappelle. He was also part of that Sean Marshall deal. Brought over Travis Wood.
Here's what we're talking about. This ball hit back to Wainwright. He can't see what Castro's doing, but why not check him out?
Two balls and no strikes. Chappelle was recalled from AAA. Their AAA affiliate is in Iowa. 1st of September. And he's appearing in his 16th game since that time. Tying run at second, the 2-0 pitch. And a 107 hitter on deck in Josh Vitters. Then the pitcher spot is due up. Did it look to you that he was pitching around Chappelle here?
If he was, I would be against it.
I'm with you.
Babe Ruth's not playing anymore.
Rizzo, Vitters, Castro, and Jackson, all young players, and some of these guys unquestionably will be the foundation for the Cubs for years to come. Still trying to find out about Vitters. Talked about Starlin Castro. They think they've got a great player in Anthony Rizzo, who's just 23. There's a ball. Brett Jackson, we've heard a lot about him. Saw him as a pinch runner in game 1. He struck out nearly half the time with over 100 at bats here at the major league level.
Yeah, I think you always have to guard against it with a team like Chicago. We've seen it from some other clubs that have struggled. The Pirates is you kind of overhype your young guys. be a lot better if they could come into a winning program and just kind of ease into it, as Alan Craig has done.
Saturday, September 29th, the Cardinals take on the Nationals, and 25,000 fans ages 16 and older receive a tabletop picture frame to help you display your favorite Cardinals. Visit Cardinals.com to get those seats. The ivy-covered walls of Wrigley Field. Always fun to come here. Warm, cold, wind blowing in, out, doesn't matter. Beltran with a base hit out to left. And Carlos is 1 for 2, and that's how we start the third.
Carlos loves to first ball hit. We've seen that a lot from him from both the right side and the left side. And there are a number of people that think you don't swing at the first pitch. You got to find out what the pitcher has, and his mindset is, if I get the pitch I want, I'm going to jump on it. And that's what he does here to start the third.
Here's Alan Craig, or rather, excuse me, Matt Holliday with Craig on deck. Holliday rips it into right center field. Beltran is off to the races. A hop off the ivy, though, waving Carlos Beltran. No throw by Castro, and it's 2-0 St. Louis. Matt Holliday driving in his 98th this year.
Well, if you like first ball hitting, you like this too. Matt Holliday also jumps on the first pitch that he sees, same spot, high and away, drives it in the gap in right center field. Getting closer to that 100th RBI is Matt Holliday. And the Cardinals push their lead to 2-0. Don't stop there.
Alan Craig singled first time up. And what do you know, he steps in with a runner in scoring position. That has been the norm lately, and he has delivered lately too. One of the best in this spot in all of baseball.
To imagine, with all the games that Alan Craig has missed this year, that he's 2 RBIs behind Carlos Beltran, who was leading the league for a very, very long time in the National League. Just incredible what he's done.
The 2-0. Misses inside.
Mentioned that Craig is now qualified for the league batting title, 3.1 at-bats per game. Has finally reached that spot.
3-0. And a strike that has not been called a strike all day. That pitch inside on the righties. We talked about it, Rick. It was first pitch swinging by Beltran and Holliday. Then he falls behind. Now 3-1 on Craig.
Should have been ball 4.
Molina is on deck. Big gap in left center field for Alan Craig. Little chopper up the middle. Barney, the wide throw, but Rizzo stretches to make the catch and the out. Advancing on the play, Holliday to third, productive out.
Productive out is something we haven't said enough of, with runners on second base and nobody out, and that's what Craig's able to do by hitting it up the middle or to the right side. He advances Holliday, and we mentioned, Dan, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, we determined that the Cardinals were last in all of Major League Baseball at doing what Alan Craig just did, and that's advancing the runner, and he's getting the knuckles from everybody. Players recognize that's an important part of this game, getting that runner from second to third. Now all Yachty has to do is get one into the outfield or through a drawn-in infield.
Freeze on deck. Yachty struck out first time.
So if there was action in the Cubs bullpen last inning, why not this inning?
Good question.
I was hoping you could answer that.
I can't.
It's actually a rhetorical question. It's okay.
A question that does not require an answer. In the air to right. Catch is made. Runner from third tags up. That's Holiday. Scores easily. And St. Louis has a lead of 3-0.
That's the way the game of baseball is played, right there. It helps that Holiday drove the ball into the gap and was on second base with nobody out, but then everybody followed suit, and the everybody are both on the leaderboard. Yadier Molina at 320, Alan Craig at 308. He is up among the league leaders for the first time, but both Molina and Craig without hits in that at bat, but they produced that run.
David Freese walked his first time up. Average at 295 this year. 1-1 pitch. 1-2. Again, the wind is blowing out to right center and right field. 1-2 pitch. Line foul. Down into the bullpen. Mike Matheny asked before the game how you approach a situation with Shelby Miller. And he said, I'm still learning him. Really have to be careful with a young player on back-to-back days. And there was a rule with Rosenthal initially with that too.
And he's overcome that. And so Rosenthal, he said today, could be back-to-back. Miller, not so sure.
Freese beats it out. Infield hit. Third hit of the inning for the Redbirds. Very tough play there by Castro. Backed up just a bit. Throwing from the outfield grass made that close. And David Freese beat it out.
Quick release from Castro. Strong throw. Really did everything he could do. David hustling down the line.
Now Descalso with a single infield hit first time up. That loaded the bases up for Cosmo, who drew a walk. Gave the Cardinals a 1-run lead. Fly ball that's hit out of play, and the Cardinals clearly aggressive early in counts here against Wood.
Cardinals are aggressive, and Dan, they're also playing a little bit faster, a little quicker. We talked in the Milwaukee series at home a number of days ago how slow the team looked. On the base paths, on the field, every place you went. And I think the Astros series against an overmatched team, I think maybe they got that ratcheted up a bit. A little confidence from that Astros series about, you know, how to outplay somebody. And even though they lost yesterday, I thought it was a different ball club. And I think Pete Cosmas had something to do with that.
He's on deck. 0-2 the count here on Descalso. One ball and 2 strikes.
Get to the point in the season where somebody will start to say, well, you know, you've got all off season to rest. And that comes into play with players playing every day, relievers being overused.
Daniels strikes out for Wood. That's strikeout number 5. And the Cardinals tack on to their lead. It's 3-0. Baseball brought to you by MyKiaSt.Louis.com. And get the All-American Jack Combo at Jack in the Box. It's a no-nonsense burger with fries and a drink for only $4.99 plus tax at participating stores. We're at Wrigley Field in Chicago. The hitter is Travis Wood. He does own a home run. Now he owns a base hit today. Home run was earlier this year, back in July, and there's a single to right.
Very good hitting pitcher. So is Adam Wainwright. There's Dave McKay, former Cardinal coach for years, instructing him about the plans on the base paths now. Top of the order in DeJesus.
Cardinals, by the way, will go with Lance Lynn on Monday in Houston, and then Jaime Garcia Tuesday, Chris Carpenter on Wednesday.
And part of the reason for holding off on announcing those starting pitchers until just before game time today, not even Lance Lynn had been for sure locked in to start game 1 in Houston. But Jake Westbrook threw a bullpen today and had to cut it short, and it was characterized as not very productive. And
setback, I guess.
Mike would not use those words. He just said, he was very cryptic about it when pushed on it, and Mike just said it just wasn't good. That's all I'm going to say. So I think disappointing for Jake Westbrook, who's really pushing to maybe be able to make a start in that series. And you may have been able to push Jaime Garcia back to the homestand, but now the Cardinals can't do that.
This pitch is popped up.
And even more important that you've got a Chris Carpenter that now you feel you can count on. Dan, we talked about his start yesterday. If his start would have been bad for whatever reason, the Cardinals would have been stuck a bit with Westbrook out, trying to figure out who would be that 5th starter. You almost go from 7, now you're back to 5, then you're at 4 because of injuries. But Carpenter, I think, established that he can go every 5th day now.
2 balls and 1 strike. David DeJesus. Runner at first is the pitcher, Travis Wood. Breaking ball has been sharp today from Wainwright.
Carpenter was, when you talked about his feelings today coming to the ballpark, and basically the conversation about Carpenter was that he was a good sore, that he was not compromised in any way for having pitched yesterday. No pain anywhere other than just the good sore that pitchers get.
2-2 misses low and away. The bullpen session for Westbrook was cut short after about 10 pitches.
Right.
And there's been no discussion as to whether or not the possibility exists of moving him to the bullpen if and when he does get healthy. You would like to think that that would be an option.
Well,
runner goes, and it's tapped out in front of the plate. Yadi will take it.
And asked specifically about that, whether or not Westbrook could be a bullpen pitcher or not. And here's a look at Jake, and very disappointed. So excited to get a chance to throw today. Thought he felt better, and this would be an opportunity for him to be able to make a start. But the pain's still there from his oblique injury, and it's kind of like a sharp pain. It's not a terrible pain, but it's just you can't pitch. That's the bottom line. To make that explosive movement to the plate requires you to have that injury fully gone, and unfortunately it's not yet. But Mike was asked about using Westbrook out of the bullpen. He thought it wasn't fair to talk about that yet either.
.1-0 pitch to Darwin Barney. In the air, tailing right center. Look at the wind take it. And John Jay comes up with a catch. What a play by John Jay. That ball just took off towards the gap in right center field, and Jay comes up with a gem.
He is fighting a lot of factors going to get this ball. First of all, it's a tough catch anyway, but you deal with the wind and the sun. The fact that this ball is slicing away from him, and boy, he just barely catches that ball too, because he caught that near the heel of his glove, but he was able to squeeze it. You could see that ball popping out if he did not have good hands.
Boy, that's a good play. Anthony Rizzo takes a strike on a breaking ball, and from our vantage point, we're located in the upper deck of Wrigley Field, right behind home plate. You could just see that ball really taking off and starting to tail. It was going to tail anyway, but then the wind just took it, and John Jay, running hard the whole time, made that play. So this is our vantage point here at Wrigley Field, high atop the seats. So you do get a very good look at how the fly balls carry here at the ballpark. Rizzo waves at that pitch for strike 2.
John Jay did something else on that particular play. After going a long way for it and diving for it and catching it, he jumped up, got it back in the infield in a hurry. Travis Wood, we know he can hit a little bit, but he evidently can run a little bit, because he was thinking about trying to score from second base. And if John Jay would have taken his time, he may have tried to make that attempt.
And the Cubs will get on the board with this. Wood will score as that ball went to the backstop, hit the bricks. And it's now a 3-1 lead for St. Louis.
Somehow this ball scoots past Yadier Molina. He's trying to smother it, but it just stays low. It's a curveball from Wainwright, and it hits and just doesn't bounce. It just stays low. And Yadi, who went down to get it, just left a little bit too much room in that one hole.
Called third strike on Rizzo. 3-1 St. Louis after 3. It's Cosmo, Wainwright, and John Jay as Wood is finishing up his warm-up tosses here at Wrigley Field. Your favorite places to play when you were playing? I'm assuming that this has got to be one of them, whether it was good or bad.
No question. It's a top 3. Wrigley Field, and one of the reasons I like playing here is they never let me play here. It was always a little vacation, a nice little weekend off in the city of Chicago. You love the city of Chicago. It's hard not to. The places to see and wonderful places to eat here in Chicago. It's just really a fun city, but generally this is not a place you like to use left-handed pitchers. But I love the ambiance here, the fans, interaction, the Cubs and Cardinal fans going after each other in a nice way. And I actually liked going to New York too. Nobody did, but old Shea Stadium was really not much fun.
I did too.
Did you?
It was old, dirty,
energetic,
messy, but energetic.
No question.
The fans got into it. The place literally would be shaking. I enjoyed it.
Well, I enjoyed it because that's where I watched games growing up as a kid.
Sure.
So there was something about that felt different than every other stadium, and certainly a lot of history here in Chicago. You think about the great players that have played here.
You mentioned it yesterday. Great to see that Ron Santo does finally get the call to the Hall of Fame as his number's been retired. That's the flagpole down the left field line. The 2-2.
Ernie Banks, Fergie Jenkins, Billy Williams, Greg Maddux. You think Cubs, you think all those players.
Recent history would be Maddux, Sammy Sosa, Kerry Wood.
I think Andre Dawson.
Sure.
And now I think that he's hiding in the ivy somewhere because of that TV commercial that we've seen over and over again.
And Kerry Wood pulls him out.
Kerry Wood pulls. I love that commercial.
Andre Dawson, what are you doing here?
He's in there somewhere. Andre Dawson.
The 2-2 pitch to Cosma. The fly ball out to left. Soriano coming on, and he makes the catch. You may remember that Soriano began as an infielder and now is turned into an outfielder. Let's check in with Pat.
Guys, when Yadier Molina hit the sacrifice fly in the 3rd inning and drove in the run, that was RBI number 70 for him. That makes 5 Cardinals with 70 or more RBIs on the season. That hasn't happened since 1996 for the Cardinals. It was Brian Jordan, Ray Lankford, Ron Gant, Gary Gaetti, and the 5th member of that team to get 70 RBIs was our good friend John Mabry. Mabes was 74 that year.
Cardinals this year with 5 players with 20 or more home runs.
What a great balanced lineup that is. And you've got 5 guys with 70 more RBIs and 5 with 20 or more home runs. It's hard to pitch to that lineup. You can't pitch around players as much.
We've heard from scouts that follow the team, especially here last month and a half, the expectation that St. Louis gets into postseason play. Wainwright strikes out. That's number 6. They will tell you the thing that's most intimidating about the Cardinals is the fact that this lineup, in their opinion, as good as anybody's in baseball because of what we're just talking about.
I agree. And it is from top to bottom. And you're not even talking about John Jay when you make that statement, because he's not one of those home run guys or RBIs guys, but he is hitting over 300, has been a good leadoff hitter. And you throw Matt Carpenter into that and what he's done offensively, hitting close to 300 as a rookie and driving in runs in his limited playing time. He's got a good lineup.
Misses on the outside corner to John Jay, who is 0 for 2. Now, with all that production, the Cardinals' recent trend has been strikeouts. Already with 6 today, and we're not even through 4. A 2-0 pitch. Talking about Ron Santo, and certainly deserved to be in there with the numbers that he put up as a third baseman, but also 21 seasons as the heart and soul of their broadcast team. There's a high fly ball out to center. You talk about a guy that wore his emotions on his sleeve, and he bled that Cubby blue. Ron Santo. Obviously a very big game for Milwaukee, trying to keep pace, and for Gio Gonzalez. Subway sub prize on the line, the National League wild card, and right now it's down between St. Louis, Milwaukee, LA, and Philly. Atlanta, we assume, is on its way. Broken bat, fly ball out to left for the first out. Off the bat of Alfonso Soriano. Twice he has flied out. He's 0 for 2.
And those are the only teams that were on that screen, Dan, but I'm not so sure we can fully eliminate a couple of other clubs. Arizona still in it as far as I'm concerned. Arizona 4.5 games back. Pittsburgh, I think at 5.5, that's too much, and they're not playing well. But Arizona, they're playing right at 500 baseball now. They would have to basically win the rest of their games, but it could happen.
The pennants that fly, those are the standings. West Central and the East, as Castro has a check swing and a strike.
So somebody checks the standings every day, pulls those flags down, rearranges them, gets them back up. We're assuming somebody does that every day.
You got it. Slowly hit to the right side. Descalso. 2 outs. Visit the official online shop of the St. Louis Cardinals. It's Cardinals.com. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Cardinals.com. And when you head there, make sure you head to Cardinals Authentics. There's a lot of the World Series memorabilia at Cardinals Authentics. Also the fan jewelry, Cardinals.com. All over the website.
We would have to assume that the job description would also include putting the right numbers on the scoreboard. I would guess that's the same guy. What do you think?
He's going to be busy then.
It's okay.
I'd say at least 2 out there. At least 2. Did you ever go inside the wall at Fenway, the monster?
Never. Never went inside it, no.
Now that's a fun experience. You're missing out. You
I'd
need to set up a visit out there.
I've thrown baseballs that hit that wall in Fenway.
Dented it?
Many times.
Well, you weren't the only one.
Good point. Well, I feel a little bit better.
Yeah. Two-one pitch hit out of play, and it's 2-2. R.A. Dickey is pitching tonight. 18-6, or later this afternoon, I should say, at New York. And then Gio Gonzalez, 19-8, so he has a chance to become a 20-game winner. The 2-2 pitch. Strikeout for Adam Wainwright. The second of the afternoon, that one of Wellington Castillo.
Be here in person the next time your Cardinals take the field. Just head to StubHub, where it's easy to find the seats that you want to see the Cardinals in action all season long. StubHub is the official fan-to-fan ticket marketplace of the St. Louis Cardinals. Cool afternoon in Chicago. Cardinals with a 3-1 lead. Plenty of Cardinal fans on hand. And it'll be Beltran, Holiday, and Alan Craig for St. Louis here in the fifth. And some action in the bullpen again for Chicago.
When you pitched here, Rick, was it, especially if the wind was blowing out, intimidating to pitch at this ballpark?
Yeah, you actually have to will yourself not to think about the surroundings in a place like this.
That's not easy to do, I would assume.
No, and it's like pitching in St. Louis or playing in St. Louis and pretending it's not 120 degrees on the AstroTurf at the time. And you just have to be kind of mentally strong. And, it's a loud stadium, too. The fans are right on top of you and can be very loud here. And I always felt as if this mound was never the same as other mounds in baseball. And the Cubs would deny it.
It's been said a lot here. Even the current players have talked about that.
The step back was very short. You would have a big drop. So if you were a pitcher that liked to step back from the rubber instead of to the side, you feel like you'd be going downhill, and then you'd have to work your way back uphill. And just the visual from the mound, it just seemed like you were throwing on flat ground. That's the step back. Now, Wood doesn't take a step back. He just kind of stands on the rubber and goes sideways. Doesn't really take a big step backwards. And it's really regulated. All mounds are supposed to be the same, but there's something about the visual here from the mound that felt like you were pitching uphill. San Diego would be the opposite. Felt like you were throwing off a tall building.
Beltran hits it into the air to the right side. This could be an adventure. Will it drop in? No. The right fielder is there, Sapelt, and he makes the catch for the out. Brings in Holiday.
But the other thing that happens, and we were talking about it with some of the Cubs people, the changeup that Salas threw yesterday, you have to be careful because there's times where your off-speed pitches, especially, you have to make sure you finish them, because there's something about the wind and the air here where it just seems like the ball would sit up. If you're not careful, it wouldn't move quite as much. And you think about San Francisco the same way. The weather would actually affect your pitches.
That's amazing, isn't it?
So if you're a control pitcher, you'd have to be careful. Now, San Francisco was worse, 10 times worse than here. I'm talking about old Candlestick Park.
They're on the point, the water, the coolness at the summer months in San Francisco.
You try to explain to people how cold it was there, and it never really gets communicated unless you've actually lived through that. You think, oh my goodness, it's California, but it would be freezing cold.
Yep. This would feel warm. What we're dealing with right now. Holiday waves at it. He strikes out. That's 7 today for Travis Wood. By the way, he is due up third. And again, they have had a right-hander up for the second time.
Would guess this would be his last inning of work here. Alan Craig is 1 for 2. He singled and scored in the second. That run, by the way, an unearned run for Travis Wood, who's thrown 96 pitches unearned because the third baseman Vitters dropped a pop-up hit by Daniel Descalzo, who a couple of pitches later had a base hit to keep that inning going.
Base hit right there, Alan Craig. Let's say a happy birthday to Marianne Dryden. Marianne is a longtime Cardinals fan, never misses a game, so happy birthday to Marianne Dryden in South City. Nice note here. So joining that 70 RBI club, Yadier Molina with a sac fly RBI to bring in Beltran back in the third. 5 of them now with 70 or more. And Yadi pops it up. Rizzo is over near the tarp, reaches in and out of room.
Alan Craig on first base, Yadi at the plate. These two guys contributed to some Cardinals scoring in the third inning by playing the game the way it's supposed to be played. Alan Craig gets Holiday to third with 1 out. Yadier Molina hits a fly ball with 1 out. That scores Holiday. That's the way you play winning baseball. Move him over, get him in.
Yadi a bouncer to Castro at short. Force play at second. We're midway through 5. Cardinals here at Wrigley with a lead of 3-1. Cardinals have a great deal. It's college nights, and the next one October 2nd. $10 tickets at cardinals.com/college. Look at Chris Carpenter. Made his return to the rotation yesterday, and we will see him Wednesday in Houston. Carpenter, no spring training essentially. Had not pitched in a competitive game since Game 7 of the World Series, and yet he comes back without his best stuff. I think he would tell you that, and still was able to give the Cardinals 5 innings in his return.
Well, he knew what to do with his stuff that day, which is what veteran pitchers know how to do. And if you go out there and you warm up for a game and you say, well, I don't have my best stuff, and you think, well, I can't win that way, then guess what? You're not going to. The veteran pitchers and elite level pitchers just know that they've reached a higher level and can find a way to get the job done. Because when it all comes down to it, nobody really cares whether you had your best stuff or not. It's did you get guys out or not?
It's popped up. Yadi giving it a look. Does he have a play near the screen? No.
Cardinals have had a couple of pitchers who I will not name in the last 5 to 10 years that
come on, do it.
Would talk about in their post-game sound about how they felt after they gave up 5 runs in 5 innings. They talk about how they felt and I didn't have this stuff, and at some point you just got tired of hearing that. And it's like, look, I don't care how you feel. You gave up 5 runs in 5 innings. Just admit I didn't get the job done. I think how you feel is certainly an issue, but I don't want to hear it as an excuse. And Carpenter is not an excuse guy, that's for sure. And here Carpenter yesterday, we'll take a look at the job that he did. Again, not the overpowering fastball, but just 2 runs in 5 innings of work. Only 1 walk. Not a lot of balls hit hard other than that 1 inning. That 1 inning was rough for him. He got hit around a bit, but he got back on track again, and Chris Carpenter with a solid 5 innings of work.
In steps Josh Bitters. The cutter misses low and away. There's a few of those cutters that you saw even in those highlights that were typical Chris Carpenter. You know, a few of those were just nasty. And again, there wasn't a consistency with them, but as you mentioned, first time out. Not sure how that stuff was going to be, but I'm sure in his mind, you know, today is a day, even though the team lost, but he's got to feel good about how he pitched on a personal level.
Yeah, and he should be 1-0. Unfortunately, he's not. And the lift that he gave the Cardinals didn't last very long because they weren't able to get the outs out of the bullpen that were needed. Not that there weren't good performances out of the Cardinals bullpen. Shelby Miller got a couple of outs. Sam Freeman had a big strikeout in the game.
2-2 on Josh Bitters, who was the 3rd overall pick in 2007. Swing and a miss. The breaking ball has been very good, hasn't it, Rick, today?
It sure has. One more look at that curveball from Wainwright. This is nasty. 12-6 variety.
Missouri Lottery Fox tracks on that replay. Here at Wrigley Field. Beautiful day. Wrigley was built in 1914. As Travis Wood is hitting for himself here, despite the fact that a right-hander continues to throw in the pen.
A little surprised by that.
You mentioned it. He can swing the bat. He does have a home run. Single to right. First time up.
But they have 8 pinch hitters on the bench.
One ball and 2 strikes.
I'm surprised he's hitting here. Again, with the pitcher throwing, and maybe if it's a case of Wood going out there just to face 1 or 2 batters in the next inning, that would make some sense. But David Freese, a right-hander, leads off for St. Louis.
The high fly ball into right. Beltran backing up, and he makes the catch. We'll find out if they make that change when we come back. It's 3-1 after 5. A 3-1 lead with St. Louis on top. Manny Corpus into the ball game, so there's our answer. Is Wood hits for himself despite the fact you have expanded rosters, and this is our Chevy call to the pen. They must really like his bat.
Or they don't like the bat of the guys on the bench. That's the way I would take it if I was a Cubs bench player. Brian LaHare, you would think, would have a better shot than Travis Wood at Adam Wainwright. Could have used him in that situation. So we've seen a lot of moves in this series that are head scratchers, and that's one of them.
Manny Corpus last time out against Cincinnati took the loss. He's 0-2. That allowed the Reds to clinch a playoff spot that afternoon, and Manny gave up 5 singles in a row, then a double. Wheels came off, and Chicago lost that ball game against Cincinnati. 3-0 here on David Freese.
So if you're the Milwaukee Brewers and you're watching this game, which I imagine they have an eye to this game, and they are seeing that the pitcher gets to hit against Adam Wainwright but then doesn't go back out, and they don't use LaHare, I would think I'd be a little perturbed about that.
3-1 pitch, and that's inside to Freese. We wrap up the series against the Cubs tomorrow, and Loesch going for win number 16. It's our Budweiser What's on Tap. Follow up the point that we were making earlier about the rotation not set in stone. One of the things that Mike Matheny was talking about was trying to maximize as many starts as he can with an off day mixed in with Wainwright and Loesch, and potentially lining them up for that wild card playoff game if the Cardinals get in. Third baseman is in here for Descalso.
That's always tricky business, because the if you get in always becomes the kind of turning point on that comment, Dan, because there are a lot of teams knocking on the door right now. Milwaukee Brewers playing very well. So at this point it is Lynn, Garcia, and Carpenter in Houston. And after that, I think the answer is we'll see.
Runner at first, David Freese. 1-0 pitch here to Descalso. That misses inside. 2 balls and no strikes.
And in case folks missed it, the disappointment of the day is Jake Westbrook trying to throw a bullpen today with an eye to maybe starting in that Astros series, but cut his bullpen short through probably less than 10 pitches as we watched him. Seemed fine throwing the baseball, but the pain, if it's there, it's there. And clearly disappointed, had to stop throwing. Really not a lot of information about where Jake is, but to be fair to Jake and to the Cardinals, you know, you got to have a chance to maybe let that sit a bit and see, is it something that maybe feels better tomorrow, and is it something that requires an extra week's rest? I mean, you just don't know. So you don't really want to be too definitive about the future of Jake Westbrook till he has a chance to think about it and then work with the trainers.
Base hit, Descalso out to left. First two have reached against Manny Corpus, and the hitter will be Pete Kozma. Let's check in with Pat.
Just a little more on Jake Westbrook. He talked to the media just before the game and very discouraged, certainly, for having to cut short his bullpen session, just 10 pitches thrown. And he said that it was hard to imagine him making another start before the season ends. It appears to him like this is a setback in the sense that it feels just like it did when it first happened 2 weeks ago. And he didn't make any progress the last couple of days. In fact, he regressed a little bit with his progress. And so he's very discouraged. It doesn't sound like there's much of a timeline set right now. It's just give him more rest and see what happens. But with just 10 games left after today, it seems very doubtful that we'll see him back in action unless they make the postseason. And he actually has to make some progress before that.
First two have reached, and now it's Kozma. And he looks at a low strike. Kozma today has walked, and he's also flied out to left. This inning has begun with a walk to Freeze, opposite field single by Descalso, and Kozma with a walk and a fly out this far. Kozma hits it sharply to third. Out at second. That's all they'll get with a low throw. No exchange. And so runners at first and third with one down. David Freese avoiding that throw from the third baseman, and now Wainwright a chance to help his own cause. Struck out with the bases loaded back in the second, and he struck out swinging in the fourth. Travis Wood actually struck out 7 on the day. One out, runners at first and third. And Rizzo over, I'm sure, to remind Corpus you've got some speed there at first base. Don't forget Pete Kozma. So Washington, good news there. Bottom of 4 with Gio Gonzalez on the mound, a 6-run lead over Milwaukee. Thinking the potential maybe of a squeeze if Wainwright would show that. Cardinals tried to squeeze yesterday, and it still worked out as Kozma was able to score.
Exactly.
Turned out to be a stolen base. Wainwright is showing bunt. Now he pulls back. 0-2.
We have a lot of options here. You just try to bunt the runner over. You can try to drive him in. You can squeeze. All 3 of those are possibilities with Wainwright at the plate. The thing you don't want is the double play. That's the key thing. So Wainwright, you'd prefer the strikeout than the double play, obviously. And if you're Wainwright, you're just trying to drive the ball into the outfield if possible. And he's a good enough hitter to do that.
Here's the 0-2 pitch to Adam. To the backstop it goes, and nobody can advance.
Well, why nobody can advance is a mystery to me.
Kozma has to be at second base.
I'm not sure what he was thinking. I mean, you could have reacted late and still gotten to second base. That ball goes back to the backstop, pops up into the air, and Kozma's retreating back to first base for some reason. I'm not sure if he just thought that was a foul. I don't know what he thought. So that's a big mistake, and that keeps the double play in order.
1-2 the count on Wainwright. A 3-1 St. Louis lead. Wainwright with a fly ball into right center. Barney makes the catch and fires it back into the infield. Freese stays put, as well as Cosma. Nice play by Darwin Barney. Another play where you wonder if Freese is at the bag at third. Could he tag up?
Again, I would say, what else should you do other than tag up? If the ball drops, you're going to score anyway. So why wouldn't you tag up? So again, two base running mistakes in this inning for the Cardinals. I'm not sure Freese could score. I think that would have been maybe a 50-50 opportunity for him, especially the way Barney played that. But as he quickly got rid of the ball, there was nobody really there to catch it.
Here is John Jay. Cardinals need a 2-out base hit. Let's go back to David Freese. His reaction on this play.
Kind of caught in between.
In between is right. Tough read. But as you said, if it drops, he scores anyway. Here's the 0-1 pitch. Jay lines it to short, and Castro is there. It saves a run. The Cardinals miss a golden opportunity here in the top of the 6th. All the action of the Major League Baseball postseason on Fox and TBS. Excitement begins October 5th with the wild card on TBS. Right-hander begins to throw in the bullpen for Chicago. Their scoreless frame by Manny Corpus, and Cardinals really let him off the hook. David DeJesus. Thus far, Adam Wainwright very good today. 2 base hits allowed. A double back in the second, and a single by the pitcher Travis Wood at the time in the third.
It's never fair to just imagine that the same situation would have happened had something happened before it. And the example would be Pete Cosma went to second base on that wild pitch. You'd have to think that the infield would have been in for Chicago. And that Wainwright little bloop, probably a base hit, scores 2 runs.
Good point.
But again, you can't always say that the pitcher would have made the same pitch, and kind of dangerous to just do that. But the importance of taking that extra base.
High fly ball, and this is way out of here. Home run. DeJesus is 8th of the season. It cuts into the lead, 3-2. Washington has added on to their lead against Milwaukee. It's now 9-0. Ian Desmond a home run. So 9-0 in favor of Washington, and in this ball game it's 3-2.
83-mile-an-hour changeup from Wainwright, and after his last start, he said he has got to start throwing his changeup slower. The velocity on his changeup has not been right. It's just been jumping out of his hands. The changeup needs to be 8 to 10 miles an hour slower than his fastball. And since he's throwing in the upper 80s, the changeup needs to be more like 80 miles an hour. 83 is too hard. The hitter can read fastball and still react to that changeup.
Diving catch by Descalso. What a play. Full extension. He laid out. What a catch by Daniel Descalso.
He's been struggling defensively lately, but no struggles here. He lays out, flying across the infield to make that play, and Wainwright approves.
He was all smiles after that. Great play by Daniel.
What I've noticed with Descalso, and we saw it in the first inning of this game, is Daniel seems to be a little bit off in terms of his footwork. And he's such a good fielder and such a good glove guy, but he's made a lot of errors lately. But a lot of it's happened with his lower half. He just seems off balance. He stumbled. First batter of the game today, and I know he's working at it, but it makes it seem as if he's rushing a bit, and that's more of a problem on easy plays, Dan, than it is on hard ones.
0-2 on Rizzo. That's twice that Darwin Barney has been robbed. Remember, it was the play in Jay in right center that he took a hit away from Barney. That was back in the third.
This game is closer than it should be.
It's got the feel that the Cardinals should be up by 6-7 runs.
I agree.
Here's a 1-2 pitch. Rizzo hits it the other way, and that'll drop in for a base hit. Brings in Alfonso Soriano. You know, we've seen Soriano here in the big leagues for a number of years now, and age of 36, putting up great numbers. He was signed at the age of 16 to go play over in Japan. Major league teams didn't want him at that time. Had a chance to go make money in Japan, and he did that. Then he asked out of the contract, and the Yankees bought that contract. Wiry guy, the long arms. They talk about his plate coverage, and offensively, he's had a bounce back, outstanding season. Have to be careful. 30 home runs, 104 RBIs. He's flied to left, and he's also flied out to right. And Kosuke Fukudome was here, and he was struggling. It was Soriano as one of the players that could communicate with him. Semi-fluent in Japanese. And Soriano from the Dominican.
A lot of outs to get for the Cardinals, not only for Wainwright, but for their bullpen. Only 79 pitches for Adam, working in the 6th inning.
Here's a 2-1. That's the pitch right there that you can get Soriano more times than not. As I mentioned, the long arms and plate coverage that he has. Look at this. Long fly ball out to left. It drops just short and then stuck in the ivy. The Cardinals will catch a break here. It hopped up to the top of the wall and it sticks in the ivy. The ivy was planted in September of 1937. Bill Veeck, his ideas. The Hyundai replay shows you Soriano and sticking into the wall. Cardinals really catch a break. Probably should be a tie ball game.
You would think Rizzo could have scored from first. There's the ball, still sitting up there in the ivy. Andre Dawson in there somewhere. And a tough situation for the Cardinals here. Go ahead run now at second base in Soriano. Got that pitch up and in. Again, more of a low ball hitter than a high ball hitter.
Shortstop number 13, Starling Castro.
Souvenir just sitting up there in the ivy. Now you have Starlin Castro, only one out. This is where Wainwright needs a strikeout.
And they're going to walk Castro. and I'm okay with this move. You don't normally like walking batters intentionally when you have the lead, but I think in this case Castro clearly a better hitter than Castillo, and you're trying to set up the double play.
Be the fifth time that he has been intentionally walked. So the bases will be loaded. Wellington Castillo will be the hitter. Castillo was called out on strikes back in the fourth and also grounded back to Wainwright. This has been a bullpen that has been in many ways for the Cardinals overworked, and you just don't know the availability of some of the guys that are out there. And Mike Matheny said until they play catch, we just don't know. I mean, you had Mujica, his sixth appearance in 8 games yesterday. One out, base is loaded. Strike one. Twice this year Wainwright has had a bases loaded walk, something he had only done once his entire career. But it's been the Mujica, Boggs, Mott recipe. You know, that trio that's gotten the Cardinals to some of these wins. You wouldn't think that that would happen today, and something came flying off of Castillo's hand. A lot of the players will use that, almost a thumb guard that they use. Now he's got him at 2 strikes.
Tommy Herr is the first player that I saw use that thumb guard, and it was to protect against getting your hand jammed, your thumb jammed on a pitch in the inside half.
Here's the 0-2.
Wainwright in need of a strikeout here. Sam Freeman getting loose in the Cardinals bullpen. He had a nice outing here yesterday.
One ball and 2 strikes. Bases are loaded. The Cardinals lead at 3-2 here in the bottom of the 6th. Good rip at that one. Here's a 1-2 pitch. Fly ball, shallow right. Beltran sliding, and he caught it. Fires back into the infield. It's offline, but he makes the catch. The game is tied as Rizzo scores.
I'm not sure if Rizzo left early or not, but if I'm the Cardinals, you at least have to challenge that. The sliding catch is sometimes hard to judge from a runner's point of view.
And I think, Rick, Jose Oquendo is saying the same thing to Mike Matheny. Nice play by Beltran and Wright. Freese has not gone to the third base bag. Catch is made.
And it looked like he did tag up.
Yep. RBI for Castillo, ties it up. There's a base hit out to left. Soriano being waved in. The throw by Holiday, not in time. The Cubs have their first lead this afternoon, and it's 4-3.
Another cutter from Wainwright in the middle of the plate. Strong effort by Holiday, not in time.
Now Bitters, he's 0 for 2. Runners at first and second. There's a high fly ball lifted to left. Holiday under it, and he makes the catch. The Cubs have their first lead of the afternoon. We head to the 7th. Beltran, Holiday, Craig due up. Well, the Cardinals now trailing 4-3 in this game. Milwaukee getting pounded, so that's the good news. They're a game and a half back. Then you have LA, Philly, the rest of the crew chasing that second wild card. Michael Bowden comes in to face Beltran, Holiday, and Craig. Bowden was picked up from the Boston Red Sox Marlon Byrd deal. Second pitcher used out of the pen by Dale Swaim. It's our Chevy call to the pen. He's 25 from this area. Said his dream was to pitch at Wrigley Field. Grew up a Cubs fan. He was born in suburban Winfield, Illinois. Now lives just outside the city. And a 1-0 pitch. Beltran looks at a strike. The Cardinals with a great opportunity last inning, couldn't cash in. That was off of Manny Corpus. Redbirds on the day have stranded 7. Beltran with a single, a run scored back in the 3rd. He is struck out and flied out.
So this game that seemed as if it was a huge Cardinal lead no longer seems that way.
Now they trail.
Did have that feel, did it not?
Yes, it did. 1-2 pitch. Holiday on deck, and then Craig. The 7th inning. 1-2. Beltran, a swing and a miss. Cardinals today have struck out 8 times.
Chased that one out of the strike zone. You know, here's an opportunity for the Cardinals, who are a good hitting team. We talk about that quite a bit. Good hitting team. Well, you trail by a run, so come back and take it back. Bad inning for Adam Wainwright in the 6th inning. Don't just kind of call it a day. I'm not sure. I'm not saying that's the mindset of the Cardinals, but you've got to find a way to win this game. It's a 1-run game in the 7th. Win it.
Check swing and a foul ball.
And you don't really care who does it or how it happens or all the reasoning involved in it. Just do it.
Strike 2 on Holiday.
Cubs are 33 games below 500. You're in a pennant race. Figure it out.
Home plate umpire has been consistent with that. Bill Miller, crew chief. These pitches inside to the righties. Steele trying to frame it up. 2-2. Two pitch in the dirt. Rick Dale Swaim was asked about evaluating some of this young talent like a Bowden. Does he fit into the plans? And he said he always hears about spring training. You can't evaluate talent then. Don't do it in September. And he said, I disagree with the second part of that, because here we are facing the Cardinals, facing a team that has a chance to go to postseason play, and they're playing the normal guys. This gives me a chance to know what some of my younger guys are made of in these spots. Interesting.
I tend to agree with him.
As Holiday hits it sharply, but Barney is there. He also talked about the right side of his infield. Darwin Barney and Rizzo potentially being Gold Glove guys in the future. This week, Fox NFL Sunday, Rams and Bears. Tomorrow, coverage begins the Built Ford Tough Fox NFL pregame show at 11. But it makes sense. You have a chance to play spoiler. You want to find out what your guys are made of in crucial spots.
Well, I think it's funny that, and it is a baseball expression. You don't evaluate in March, you don't evaluate in September. So what month does matter? I mean, is it June? Let's take June. That's when you figure out whether a guy can play. Let's pick June. I mean, it is kind of arbitrary, isn't it?
I think spring training, you know, I'll take Gio Gonzalez as a great example. We saw him pitch against the Cardinals. Clearly he was working on things. Cardinals battered him around. And if you faced him now, he's going for the Cy Young and trying to pitch his team into postseason, which he's done. So I understand that. But in this spot, this is live action right here. And you're trying to put away one of the top hitters in the game right now in Alan Craig.
But if you're the Washington Nationals, you can evaluate a performance by Gio Gonzalez where he gives up 6 runs and still say, I like this guy. And that's the difference. Don't evaluate just on numbers, perhaps. But spring training is still a place where guys make an impression. Trevor Rosenthal did it. Joe Kelly did it.
Good point.
And so when the middle of the season came around, Mike Matheny wasn't afraid to go to those guys.
R.A. Dickey, a 4-run lead for the Mets in the bottom of the 8th. Trying to get to 19 wins. This is well hit out to left. Soriano is playing deep, and he'll make the catch. Time to stretch here at Wrigley. Rick's favorite, George Lopez, will sing it when we come back. Take me out to the ballgame. We'll get serious today because if the Cardinals score 6, any size drink, just 50 cents all day tomorrow at your nearest on the run and mobile. This year, 6 is a serious number. Along with Rick Horton, I'm Dan McLaughlin. Pat Paris is here. And taking a look at doing more on defense. What a play this was by Descalso. Boy, you love to see that.
He's made a number of plays this season that are absolute gems. And that was one of them. Adam Wainwright, the beneficiary. But Wainwright, a rough 6th inning where he gave up 3 runs. Back to work in the 7th. 3 runs on 4 hits in that inning. And the run I think that's most frustrating to Wainwright is you look back at that first run he gave up back in the 3rd.
That was the wild pitch that allowed Travis Wood to score from 3rd. Is Rosenthal and Freeman getting loose. Second time that Freeman has been up. Backhanded catch by Alan Craig. In steps De Jesus, the top of the lineup. One out and nobody on. De Jesus pulls it foul. So the pitch count is near 100, and with the 2 relievers getting loose, Rick, and what Wainwright went through a taxing inning in the 6th, you would figure this would probably be it for him. We shall see.
There's a good chance this is his last inning, and there's also a chance that he won't face Anthony Rizzo if we get to that spot. Freeman getting loose. You'd have to think that's who he's up to face. Certainly not De Jesus because Wainwright's still in. And De Jesus has been a pain in the neck in this series already. Wainwright has been very good at this ballpark. 1-5 at home and 5-0 on the road. Very unusual numbers for Wainwright, who's been much better at home in his career, but not against the Cubs.
Time is called. De Jesus with a home run back in the 6th inning. That inning, the Cubs scored 3. Taken just a bit high. Full count. Here it comes. On the inside corner, a strikeout for Wainwright. That's his 5th of the day.
Second baseman number 15, Barney.
Strikeout. Replay brought to you by Mazda. So with 2 outs, here's Darwin Barney. He's been robbed twice today. Strike 1. Wainwright saying the other day, you put me in the bullpen now, I wouldn't even be close to being one of the hardest throwers. And when I was in the bullpen, I still wouldn't be one of the hardest throwers with the young arms the Cardinals have, and a good way to finish this up. Just over 100 pitches in a 1-2-3 inning. We head to the 8th. 4-3 lead as we move to the top of the 8th. Sapelt is our Schnucks difference maker. This would score Alfonso Soriano. Sapelt is 1 for 2, single walk, RBI, the right fielder, and Soriano has scored the 4th run for Chicago to make it a 4-3 lead.
A lot of hits and a lot of important at-bats against Wainwright. The result of off-speed pitches. A changeup that was too hard. That was a home run. The curveball that hung. A cutter. A lot of the hits on those secondary pitches of Adam Wainwright.
Chance of Yachty here at the ballpark. Sean Camp, the reliever for Chicago. We're in the top of the 8th. 1-0 pitch. Molina picked up his 70th RBI back in the 3rd.
Appearance number 77 for Camp. He is now the league leader in that stat, so he's been busy.
Taken inside.
He has that sweeping breaking ball he's trying to have come across the inside corner, and he's missed twice on the inner half.
Lefty getting loose in the pen.
That pitch just barely catches the outside corner, or does it?
It's slider after slider from Camp. 3-2 pitch. In the air, right field. 1 away. Cardinals are running out of outs. What did it cost to build Wrigley Field back in 1914? AT&T trivia question. You see the shot from the Fox Sports Midwest blimp. Look at that, $250,000.
It's incredible.
Really is. Here's David Freese. Pair of walks and a base hit.
Well, they spent all their World Series proceeds from 1907 and 1908 when they won the World Series. The last time the Cubs were in the World Series, 1945. They lost to the Tigers that year. Been a long time coming for the Cubs fans.
Camp has been with Kansas City, Tampa Bay, Toronto, and now Chicago. And it's 1 ball and 2 strikes. On the outside corner, and Freese can't believe it.
Is it a strike? The pitcher would say yes. The hitter says no. The umpire says, hey, hey. That's how they say it.
The Cubs score 4 runs or more. They're 48 and 28 this year. Bullpen ERA is high, just behind New York in the National League. Mets had a terrible bullpen a year ago that has carried over statistically this year. What's concern right now, number one for the Cardinals trailing in this game, is that you've got 2 outs, nobody on here in the 8th. Marmol has been very good in the second half, their closer.
So that Cubs bullpen that has been porous has retired 7 straight Cardinals. And as you say, Marmol will be ready for the 9th. Not going to get any easier.
Washington with a lead of 9-2 over Milwaukee. That's in the top of the 6th. It's been Corpus, Bowden, and now Camp in relief of their starter today, Travis Wood. Wood gave them 5 innings. 3-1 pitch to Descalso. The tying run is on. You stick with Cosma here. Go with a pinch hitter. We shall see. This copyrighted telecast is presented by the authority of the St. Louis Cardinals and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the St. Louis Cardinals. Well, even if Dale Swain will go with Russell, the Cardinals invite this. Carpenter facing a lefty. They feel lefty-righty, it doesn't really matter when Matt Carpenter is at the plate.
I would be okay with it, and there's no reason for Russell to be up right now unless he's going to come in to face Matt Carpenter.
Check on Daniel over at first. Descalso, by the way, on base 3 times today. 2 singles. He struck out. Now a 2-out walk. Let's see what Matt Carpenter can do. First pitch is a strike. Carpenter this year 7 for 30 as a pinch hitter, 11 RBIs, and we mentioned how Camp loves that slider. Maybe he puts one down and into a lefty like Carpenter, and he can deposit it into seats and right.
Not sure why Russell's not in this game right now. Wainwright's on deck. Certainly he won't bat. Cardinals have Schumacher, Anderson, Chambers as options from the left side. And then you bring in Russell. Then you go to a right-hander, which would be Robinson, Hill, or Cruz.
Ron Renicky has moved Ryan Braun out of the ball game. 9-2 in favor of Washington. Braun has been playing with a groin strain. There's the 0-1 pitch to Matt Carpenter. 0-2. Now in the hole.
Schumacher now in the on-deck circle for Wainwright.
Sam Freeman throwing in the bullpen. Anthony Rizzo due up first for Chicago. "71 years ago today, Stan the Man made his major league debut. Picked up hit number 3,000 in this ballpark. Here's the 0-2. Outfield is very deep. This is where Carpenter has really made a name for himself as a rookie. As a pinch hitter, he's been one of the top pinch hitters statistically for the Cardinals in many years.
A lot of RBIs, very deep, as you mentioned, in the outfield, and still shading him into that right center field gap. Big area down the right field line. And you can actually see the kind of the grass out in right field, which has been worn out where the right fielder normally plays. There's a patch of grass there. That's where the right fielder plays, and that's where he is now, just to show the difference between playing straight up right field and taking the gap away. And they're playing Carpenter the same way the Astros played Carpenter, and there must be a sabermetric statistic out there somewhere that Matt Carpenter never hits the ball down the right field line. I find that hard to believe as we look at his 11 pinch hits. You hang a slider to Carpenter, certainly capable of hitting the ball down to that right field corner.
Carpenter slicing out to left center, and that ball gets down. Descalso on his way to third. By shading him opposite way, that saved a run. That's how they've been playing him in this series.
Great point.
That ball was in the left center field gap. Most teams have been playing him that way this year.
Well, they were pitching him away, playing him away, setting up on the outside half, and Carpenter gets the hit, the bench reaction. Not much of one.
Cardinals certainly could pull back Schumacher and then go to those right-handed batters that you spoke of earlier. His camp is through. Russell coming in. Cardinals have runners at first and third. Fox Sports Midwest is brought to you by Mitchell Boggs, now throwing in the Cardinals pen. The pinch hitter will be Shane Robinson. They'll pull back Schumacher with the game on the line here. He has had the most pinch hitting appearances this year with 47, including this one.
Love that at bat from Matt Carpenter, by the way.
Great at bat. That's what he's done all year. Base hit could tie it. Now you have Ryan Jackson on the bench. As you pinch hit it for Cosma, you could put him in. You could think about Adrian Chambers being a pinch runner for Matt Carpenter here too.
Carpenter's a pretty smart base runner, though. Not certainly as fast as Chambers.
Here's a 1-0 pitch. Taken high, 2 balls and no strikes. John Jay is on deck. Nobody getting loose For Chicago, this is all Russell with Robinson here and then Jay on deck.
You also have the ability to put Matt Carpenter to let him stay in the game and play second base and move Descalso to short.
That's the other option. The 2-0, 2-1. Record of 7-1 for James Russell. 1 point was called upon to save some games. 2-2.
Just catches the inside corner. Little cutter.
So here we go. 2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 on, 2 outs. The next 2, Robinson. Russell walking off the mound, and that was called a ball. He slaps at the ball being thrown back to him.
And is he right? Yep.
Ooh.
He's right.
Ooh. The Cubs are giving it to Bill Miller, the crew chief. 3-2 on Shane Robinson.
Take advantage of that break.
Here it comes. Spoiled by Robinson. Will do it again. Russell, 4th pitcher used by Dale Swain today. Out of the pen, 5th overall. The 3-2.
Four 4-3 Cubs from Chicago, bottom of the 8th inning. Our Nissan drive of the game delivered by DeJesus. Off of Wainwright. That blast was run number 2, part of a 3-run Cub 6th inning, and the difference in this game. 4 runs on just 6 hits for the Cubbies, but they've made them count. Sam Freeman takes over for Wainwright. Game number 21 for him. And we saw Freeman pitch in game 1 of this series. 1 inning, just 1 hit in that game, but he also gave up no runs, had a big strikeout, and he's facing Anthony Rizzo. Mitchell Boggs had been throwing for the Cardinals as they were rallying in the top of the 8th. But now it's Rosenthal backing up the lefty Freeman. This should be his only batter.
Rosenthal up for the 2nd time. Nasty slider that time by Freeman. If he could be consistent with a slider, the fact that he throws mid-90s from this side, he's going to make himself a lot of money. They like what they see. It's just a matter of trying to get consistency out of Sam Freeman.
And what a difference a year makes not having Zepchinski in this situation. A year ago, he was just lights out in the stretch for St. Louis. And now Freeman throwing in back-to-back days.
Fly ball out to left, and Holiday makes the catch. The Cardinals have the top of the lineup coming up, and Carlos Marmol is getting loose. And Matheny will go to his pen, so 1-man outing for Sam Freeman does his job to get Anthony Rizzo in this 1-run ball game. By the way, the Cardinals as a team today, you hate bringing it up so much, but they've struck out 10 times as a team, and that has cost them in some of these situations to drive in runs. Freeman does his job. It's 4-3.
With
Trevor Rosenthal with 1 out here in the bottom of the 8th. 4-3 Chicago. A fastball in there for a strike. I would think that Rosenthal, Rick, has shown the Cardinals enough to give him more of these types of opportunities in the final week and a half.
Well, you earn your opportunities, and he's certainly done that. Cosma earned him at shortstop. By the way, Descalso is playing short for him. And Carpenter has stayed in the game to play second base. Cosma's earned his opportunities. Sam Freeman's earning his, and Rosenthal's earning his.
You think about the Cubs bullpen. We showed you the numbers earlier. Second from the bottom. Soriano pops it up. Rosenthal getting out of the way as Craig will make the catch. But the Cubs bullpen has been one of the stars in this series so far. 8 innings, 4 hits, 1 run. So they kept him in the game yesterday until Darwin Barney gave them their heroics. And then here today, 4 different relievers used, and they've done the job.
Cardinals have not scored since the 3rd inning. So Travis Wood actually settled down as well.
And now it's Starlin Castro, and that pitch at 97. I was talking with some front office personnel of the Cardinals that saw Rosenthal a few years ago. They said they initially were there to see a different player when he was drafted. Then they saw this kid coming out, and that time he was throwing, you know, high 80s, low 90s, and as his body developed, started throwing harder, and all of a sudden they looked up and this guy's throwing triple digits here in 2012. Good work by Rosenthal. The top of the order coming up. So it's a 2-2 game, and Pete Kozma will lead it off. It's been basically a steady drizzle here at the ballpark, but as that continues, some portions of the infield are sloppy. We've seen on some balls hitting the outfield that the ball is actually skipping. You can see the run of the water off the ball. It becomes a factor in this game as well.
And a factor for the fans here trying to enjoy Cardinals Cubs baseball. Always a great weekend when these two teams play, and whether it's in St. Louis or in Chicago.
Playing off the 4th inning for the Cardinals, shortstop number 38, Pete Kozma.
Good friend Tom Shelby is feeling a bit under the weather and watching Cardinals baseball back home in St. Louis, as well as Dean Pilcher. Tom has had a little accident back home, but resting comfortably and watching the ball game. There's a strike at the knees, so we wish him nothing but the best. Good man. It's Kozma, Descalso, and Carpenter, and there's a drive into right center field. That ball will get down, and it'll go to the wall. Kozma will have himself a triple. This time they couldn't cut it off as they did before. Sapelt, good effort, but slides under the glove, and Pete Kozma is in with his 2nd triple this week.
He runs well, too. I watched him run from the box all the way to 3rd, and he knew that he had a shot at a triple right away. Hits that ball on the nose, eyeballing it, takes a good route around first base, and he's flying at this point. And he's very aware that he can get at least 3, and actually went standing up, rounding the base, looking for more.
Descalso with the infield drawn in, pops it foul, and if you're Volstad, you're thinking, I can still get out of this inning. I've got the 8th place hitter here, then Carpenter on deck.
Key opportunity for Daniel Descalso here. It's really up to him. You can't rely on Chris Carpenter to drive in this run. It's got to be you.
Here's the 0-1 pitch. What's interesting is we look down on the field. They have that rubberized on-deck circle. A couple of years ago, wet, rainy night at Busch Stadium, it was a pop-up, and Pujols came down to field a pop-up and slipped. That was a nasty slip. Thought he may have hurt his back. Cardinals have removed that from their side. The Cubs still have it out on their side. Not the biggest of aspects of this game you look at, but it does become a factor.
Well,
on a
I mean,
pop-up
you're just
there.
trying to be concerned about safety issues. Cardinals have experience there. Squeeze is on.
And it doesn't matter as Kozma crosses the plate. A pitch that was up and in on Descalso. Nearly took his head off, and Pete Kozma takes home plate. And the Cardinals take the lead 3-2.
Originally not sure whether he fouled this ball off or not, but he misses it. So does the catcher. The squeeze is on. He didn't leave too soon. The problem is it was just an errant pitch, and it's a problem for everybody. Descalso, but even more so the catcher Castillo.
Pitch, stolen base.
It's
What do you got?
Got to be a stolen base.
Nice to hear that Hungo is back in the States. He and June celebrating June's birthday. June Rabowski, 60 years young, trip through Europe, so glad to hear that Hungo is back. Carlos Marmol, 20 saves and 20 opportunities, and while the numbers were awfully ugly early on, they've gotten a lot better, and Marmol has converted his last 19 save opportunities dating back to May 2nd. And during those 19 outings, which it's been a save opportunity, his ERA is .49. So this guy has been very good, and he will have to deal with the top of the lineup coming up. Mets win today 4-3 over Miami. R.A. Dickey gets that victory. Washington leading Milwaukee 10-2. Bottom of the 7th. Gio Gonzalez in line for his 20th. In this ball game here, it's Jay, Beltran, and Holiday. And here we go. 9th inning at Wrigley Field. First pitch is fouled back. Marmol has reached 20 saves this season, making him only the 5th pitcher in Cubs history with 3 straight seasons of 20 or more saves. Lee Smith, Bruce Sutter, Ryan Dempster, and Randy Myers, and now Carlos Marmol. A pitch at 95. We saw him pitch the ball game yesterday. Jay is 0 for 7 against this right-hander with 5 strikeouts. He'd love to change that here. As you saw, the wind is picked up. It's blowing out. One away.
When Marmol was not pitching well, he was not throwing his fastball. He lost confidence in that. He wanted to throw slider, 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 slider. And then when he needed to throw his fastball, he did not have the velocity or the command of it because he had stopped using it. And we saw him a couple of times during that little period, and he was really gettable. But right now, he's back to his old form and not afraid to throw that fastball. And that one at 97. He has such a herky-jerky delivery. Really hides the ball well.
Beltran has a base hit. Run scored. That was back in the 3rd.
And that tilt that he does is not something that you would normally teach, because it often throws off your command and your control, but it works for him.
Beltran out to deep right. Did he tie it? Fair ball, yes! Home run for Beltran. We're tied up with a solo shot. Number 30. Did it come at the right time or what? 4-4 here in game 2.
Plenty of Cardinal fans on their feet here at Wrigley Field. Down and in, and he turns on it. The only question, does it stay fair? And it does. Beltran. A huge hit for the Cardinals.
Now the Cardinals have Mott getting loose. You would think you get your closer up, he's coming in. However, Rosenthal awfully effective in the bottom of the 8th. We've got a new ball game. It's 4-4 here at Wrigley. The chance of let's go Cardinals.
So the string of saves is broken.
Two 2-0 the count on Matt Holliday. As an RBI double back in the 3rd. And you wonder, Marmol
shaking a bit.
Exactly, unnerved right here.
Well, you're used to good things happening. You're expecting good things to happen. Something bad happens. Gets in your head.
52-2 record this season. Chicago when leading after 8. Boy, that was such an easy, smooth swing from Beltran. We talk about smooth with him, but just dropped the bat.
Beltran-like.
Yes. And it just jumped. That ball exploded off his bat. There was no doubt the distance, just whether or not it would stay fair. Three and 1 the count on Holliday.
We've seen this from the other side, Dan. There's a time that happens in games that may go extra innings where you use your A bullpen to close out a game and it doesn't happen. Now the other team's A bullpen will be facing your bullpen. That's kind of the B bullpen in extra innings. We've been on the other side of that a few times.
A 3-2. Holliday, a good rip.
And that could be a plus for the Cardinals today. You've got Mott and Boggs perhaps available the next couple of innings, and they've used Russell and they've used Mr. Marmol. So you're going to be facing their B guys going forward.
3-2. The next two, Holliday. That's inside. The go-ahead run will take first base. A home run and a walk issued here by Marmol after getting John Jay.
What do we mean by Beltran-like? Nice, smooth, easy swing. Doesn't overswing, doesn't waste movement, but has tremendous bat speed, hand strength to be able to drive the ball.
Adrian Chambers will be the pinch runner for Matt Holliday. Chancy move there when you think about potential of extra innings and then missing the bat of Holliday. Not the easiest place to come in cold and play defense either. That's inside to Craig. Now you bring him in. The idea is steal. Get to the bag at second.
If the idea is not steal, then don't bring him in till he gets to second base. Then I'd be in more in favor of the move. But if you're bringing him in to run for your power hitter, he better steal.
Now Mott is warming up if needed. 6th appearance in 7 games. Again, you could go with Rosenthal and save Mott. Rosenthal looked very good last inning. Now it would be a couple of games in a row for him, but yesterday it was 1 pitch and an out.
I'm okay with going to Mott for the 9th inning either way.
He is running on the 1-0 pitch. A throw down to second. He is safe. Chambers in scoring position. That is why you put him in there.
It's almost a have to. You're going to pinch run for Holliday. You send him. The Cardinals do. And there's the jump, the slide, the throw, hanging on to the bag.
It's 1 ball and 1 strike. Here on Craig. A man in scoring position for him. The major league leader with runners in scoring position coming into play today at 4:05. Inside to Craig.
And you've got, I would say, the best two Cardinals in terms of opportunities to drive this run in Craig and Molina. Who else would you want up in the 9th inning of a tie game with the go-ahead run at second base other than Craig and Molina?
The 2-1. 3-1. Alan Craig, 4:05. Runners in scoring position. The go-ahead run. Chambers at second base. Four here in the 9th. Craig off the end of the bat, little squibber. Chambers advancing to third. The Cardinals, about this time last year, Carlos Marmol with Chambers at third. Remember this, a wild pitch, September 24th. And the hope at that time and dreams were still alive for St. Louis.
Wouldn't that be fun to see another one of those?
Wouldn't it be something? Cardinals would take a wild pitch here. David Freese is on deck. This is Yadier Molina, who's 6 for 11 against Marmol. Will they give him anything to hit? Would they rather deal with Freese? Almost a wild pitch.
Oh my. That barely hit off the end of the glove of the catcher.
And I hope that
Castillo.
Molina is okay, because right now he is bent over and holding his side and was holding his hip, trying to avoid that pitch. Molina bent over right away after this.
Works hard to get out of the way, and then he goes down, and boy, that's one oblique that the Cardinals can't afford to have problems with. The ball almost got away from the catcher, almost hits Molina. But the problem of the moment is Yadi going down with some pain in that hip or that side.
And Rick, right now, he can stretch only once. We probably won't know until he swings the bat.
Well, he needs to swing the bat before the next pitch comes to the plate. He just needs to go stand off on the side and try to swing it and see if it hurts or not. And boy, this could be a rough moment for St. Louis if he can't continue this at bat. And I don't think he's going to.
Wow. Not just for the remainder of this game, remainder of the season, you worry about anything with Yadier Molina.
And he is fighting that trip back to the Cardinals dugout. He slams his bat down, and the frustration of Yadier Molina is shared by all of us.
And Stephen Hill, you have Brian Anderson, Cruz. Adrian Chambers, by the way, his first ever steal at the major league level. That's hard to believe.
One more look at that pitch. It's a pitch down and into Molina. He's just trying to get out of the way. But what happens with his side, with his hip? We will wait for that news, but he grabs his side.
You always worry about the oblique that you hear so much about now. And through all this, Marmol has just been standing on the mound. He has not been playing catch or staying loose in a cold afternoon. And the pinch hitter will be Cruz, and he'll enter the game with a count of 1 ball and no strikes. He's 0 for 2 against Carlos Marmol. So Yachty is pulled from the game. His afternoon is through.
Where he grabbed, Dan, you'd like to give a hopeful thought that maybe that's just a strain, but it just appears that it could be one of those oblique issues.
And it's 2 balls and no strikes. David Freese is on deck. And also, yeah, the great matchup for St. Louis with the numbers of Molina against this right-hander. Chambers, the runner at third. The 2-0 pitch. Take it for a strike.
I'm afraid that Tony Cruz has just become an extremely important player for the St. Louis Cardinals going forward in 2012.
Well, there's no doubt about that. If it is indeed the oblique, which is what we're guessing by holding his side, that's something that you just don't come back from very quickly. The 2-1. Cruz with a drive, center field. Tailing on it and making the catch, Tony Campana. Cruz gave it a ride. So did Carlos Beltran. He's tied it up. It's 4-4 here at Wrigley. He's in the game, 4-4 in the bottom of the ninth. It's Castillo to lead things off. Adrian Chambers stays in the game. It is a risky move by Mike Matheny. You had Chambers steal the bag, almost scored on what could have been a wild pitch. And now if you head into extra innings, you don't have your third place hitter and Matt Holliday available. Tony Cruz has to stay in the game after nearly putting the Cardinals on top.
Well, what Mike Matheny was trying to do is press that advantage in the top of the ninth while you had a shot. And pinch runs for Holliday. Chambers does indeed steal second base to get in a scoring position, and you've got what you think is just what you want. Craig and Molina to maybe drive in the go-ahead run. As Rosenthal stays in the game, Craig bounces out. Molina gets hurt. Tony Cruz a good at-bat, but you can make a case whether the Cardinals are able to win this game in extra innings or not, that the Cardinals might have been better off if Beltran hadn't homered in an odd way.
I understand what you're saying. Here's a 1-1. Off the mask of Cruz into the backstop. 2 strikes on Castillo.
Credit
Rosenthal
Tony
in the game. It's 4-4 here in the home half of the ninth.
And credit Tony Cruz for a cold at bat where he was not expecting. I mean, they didn't have him getting loose, thinking about a pinch hit situation. I mean, it was just a totally cold plate appearance for Tony Cruz, and he put a good at bat on Marmol.
1 ball and 2 strikes. Because Rosenthal, we touched upon this yesterday, has had a lot of starting this year under his belt, but has been now at the club up and down and working out a relief. How deep do you think Mike Matheny can go with Rosenthal if need be today? That's fouled back.
I would not think that he would go another inning past this. Not after pitching yesterday. Not that he couldn't, but I don't think Mike would use him for an extra. You've already got Jason Mott loose. I'd say the next inning is his.
April 24th, last time that Marmol had blown a save, ironically against St. Louis.
We also saw Boggs up earlier. He would be another choice. There's Mitchell.
The 2-2.
You know, you've got another reality, Dan, that often happens for relievers. We looked at Mitch leaning against the wall down the right field line. You know, you come to the ballpark and you think, well, who do I have available? Not sure. They play catch and you hear from them and it's like, okay, maybe I could throw today. But then they get up to throw to get in a game and they have more input to pass back to Mike Matheny, which could be, oh, it's not there, or yes, it is. And that's part of Dyer Miller's responsibility to let the bench know, I don't know. Not sure he's the right choice here. Plenty of times you're warming up in the bullpen and somebody asks you, can you go or not?
Count is full. Wellington Castillo. He's 0 for 2. Spins nearly into the ground. And a strikeout for Rosenthal to start the bottom of the ninth.
It's not a very good 3-2 swing right there for Castillo.
May have chased a ball too. 5 of the last 7 times the Cardinals have lost at Wrigley, it's happened via the walk-off. Cardinals have lost 10 games walk-off fashion. We've talked about 1-run games, extra innings. That's been a sore spot. We'll see if that changes today. Oh, what a play here by Freese to stay with it. He shook up a bit. The hot corner he's playing in, and that was a bullet. Kept it in front and makes the play.
All about reactions when you're playing the hot corner. That's why it's hot. Somebody yelling, get through. Might have been the on-deck hitter, who is now at the plate.
Josh Vitters 0 for 3. Up the middle and a base hit. Luis Valbuena hits from the left side, will be the pinch hitter.
Right back up the middle. Turned around a pretty good fastball from Rosenthal.
It's interesting, we have not seen Brian LaHair.
We didn't see LaHair pinch hit when the pitcher hit Travis Wood, who was out of the game basically, and he was left in the game to hit for himself, but didn't go back out on the mound, and we thought LaHair would have been a good choice there. Valbuena, former American League player.
Hitting 220. Strike one.
That's what he hit in the American League for Cleveland and Seattle over the last 4 years, and really handed the third base job here in Chicago.
You'd have to think that Dale Swaim, if the right combination was there, would try to test Tony Cruz. No Yadier Molina there.
Vitter's not really a stolen base threat.
Again, the right combination. One ball and one strike. Luis Valbuena. Way behind that pitch by Rosenthal.
Some guys are not stolen base threats, but they're hit and run threats. You wouldn't mind running them. But the combination would be important there. Does the guy put the ball in play or not? And you get a lot riskier when you're playing at home in a tie game.
Left side off the glove of Freeze. Bitters will stop at second. Valbuena reaches on a 1-2 pitch.
And here that guy is again. DeJesus at the plate, off the end of the glove of Freeze. Good attempt by David. Now the winning run at second base, and the guy who got the game winner yesterday, David DeJesus. He faced a hard-throwing Cardinal reliever in inning number 11 yesterday, and he's facing another hard-throwing Cardinal reliever here in the ninth.
Mike Matheny will go to his bullpen here. It's Mitchell Boggs. He had been up for the second time, so he comes into the game. And it's on the line. DeJesus. Mitchell Boggs, winning run at second base. 73rd appearance. So here we go. David DeJesus, 2 for 7 against Boggs. Vitters, the runner at second base. Beltran tied this game up at 4 with a solo home run. Right below us for strike 1 with that foul ball.
I think part of the mindset right here for Mike Matheny, which I agree with, is you want a guy that's kind of been your go-to guy to be the one on the mound with 2 outs with the game on the line, more so than the rookie Rosenthal, just part of his development. And I think he let him get in the situation where once there was a runner in scoring position, he didn't want him to be the guy to be delivering these pitches.
0-1 pitch.
And I don't think that's a knock on Rosenthal. I think Mike Matheny's very pleased with Rosenthal. But with a game this important to the St. Louis Cardinals, your 8th inning specialist, Mitchell Boggs, you're better off with him facing DeJesus,
who has had very comfortable at bats in this series. Strike 2.
Well, your other option, which clearly is no longer an option from Mike Matheny's point of view, is having Mark Zepchinski in this game. And this is what we saw yesterday. Kelly delivering the game winner to DeJesus, and the Cubs celebrated. But I think it's telling that Mark Zepchinski's not in this game.
Milwaukee has lost, so currently 2 out. 1-2 pitch.
This would be a huge emotional lift if the Cardinals could somehow manage to come back and win this game after what happened yesterday.
DeJesus, I mentioned that he has had comfortable at bats. Both you and I talked about it. Would you feel more comfortable with Darwin Barney yesterday trying to beat you? The Cardinals have not pitched him inside. He's in the hole here, 1-2.
A couple of times they've tried to go in, but he's a tough guy to pitch inside because he bails. And Wainwright tried to go in on him, and he bailed and hit a foul ball home run the first at bat of the game. And, you know, inside's a different inside to him. And you better really get it in because he's going to open up a bit.
The 2-2. Fly ball out to left and making the running catch. Checked in for Holiday, the speed of Chambers, and Boggs sends us to extra innings. Extra innings presented by Jack Link's Beef Jerky all season long. Jack Link's Beef Jerky, feed your wild side. The Cardinals this season 5 and number 11 as far as losses yesterday. Chicago 4-5. Jay Chapman, very good, a lefty out of the pen, or excuse me, a right-hander out of the pen for the Chicago Cubs. They have one lefty left. They've already used Russell. Chapman was recalled from Double-A Tennessee back on the 4th of September. And we have had some heroics already in this series. Yesterday, Darwin Barney, as the Cubs were down to their final strike. And then the 9th inning today, Carlos Beltran crushed this pitch out to right. That tied it up at 4-4. And that's where we stand right now. David Freese to face Chapman, and here we go.
I guess it wouldn't be Wrigley Field if you didn't have extra innings.
Chapman was originally selected by the Braves 16th round in 2005. Over 250 minor league appearances. 0-1 pitch. He was picked up in the deal with the Atlanta Braves. Paul Maholm and Reed Johnson sent to Atlanta. Here's a 1-1 to Freese. David hits it out to center. Campana one away. As we mentioned yesterday, you're starting to get that time of the day where the shadows become a factor as well, edging closer towards home plate.
And we know Cardinal fans are most interested in news about Yadier Molina right now. I just checked with Brian Bartow, the PR director with the Cardinals, and he said there's still no word yet from the Cardinal clubhouse about Yadi, and he had to leave the game in the 9th inning, taking an inside fastball, fell down and kind of grabbed his side and wasn't able to continue his at-bat. And the Cardinal Nation very concerned about our most valuable player, Yadier Molina.
Ball game started with the lefty Travis Wood for Chicago, as he gave up 3 of the 4 runs issued to St. Louis. We've seen Corpus and Bowden, Camp, Russell, Marmol, and now Chapman. One pitch to Descalso. Gio Gonzalez defeats Milwaukee this afternoon. First pitcher in the bigs to get to 20 wins. The first DC lefty to do so since Earl Whitehill back in 1933. Magic number for Washington is at 6.
And he is getting very close to being the Cy Young Award winner. One more good start from him and a win, and I think he's got it. Good changeup from Chapman. They like his stuff. He is a young pitcher, as you said, but they believe he's the best young prospect they have.
Now it's Matt Carpenter. Carpenter was a pinch hitter for Pete Kozma back in the 8th inning, singled, then was left stranded. The strikeout of Shane Robinson. 4-4 here in the 10th. That floats in there for a strike at 81 miles an hour. Two balls and 1 strike. In the dirt. 3-1, 2 outs, nobody on. We are in the 10th. Mark Zipchinski up and throwing. Jason Mott up for the second time. The 3-1. Hopefully Carpenter didn't hurt his side with that swing.
It did seem like an odd swing, and boy, can't afford to lose another player.
That's that changeup that you spoke of here on the 3-1 pitch.
So far out in front, and there's the torque on his body, and he kind of stumbled away from that swing.
The 3-2 taken outside, so Carpenter draws a 2-out walk. Looking ahead for the Cubs in the bottom of the 10th, Barney, Rizzo, and Soriano. Here's Brian Anderson.
Number 60, Brian Anderson.
Sixth walk issued to the Cardinals today. Anderson at .250 this year. One for 5 as a pinch hitter, and that one hit was in San Diego. Inside for ball 1, and quick visit now with Chapman. Right fielder is basically on the track for Brian Anderson. There's that changeup. It's a good one. 1 ball and 1 strike.
Anderson, not really a power hitter, but as you mentioned, very deep in right.
Anderson pulls it foul. One and 2 the count. John Jay on deck if Anderson can extend the inning. Pulled foul.
A lot of off-speed pitches from Chapman. Tell that's the pitch he likes best.
Two and 2. Good at bat so far for Brian Anderson. Seen that changeup. Made the adjustment on the last 2 to foul it off. Will he see it here? The 2-2 pitch. Instead of check. They want to make sure and go over this pitch.
Chapman, a closer throughout his minor league career with the Atlanta Braves. Actually a reliever, but not a closer. He did save 13 games a few years ago, but more of an 8th inning guy. Really had a breakout year last year after having a number of years with a 5 and a 6 ERA, so you'd have to guess he found that changeup last year. But that's become his weapon.
Carpenter off with the next pitch. Anderson has worked the count full. The 3-2. And he walked him. So back-to-back walks, and in steps John Jay. Jeff Bellevue is a left-handed pitcher that they do have available, but the Cubs are going to stick with Chapman. Interesting. Maybe it gives you an insight into their faith into that lefty.
Agreed.
They've already used Russell.
The only other thought, Dan, would be that once you get to extra innings, you start to think less about matchups and more about who's going to pitch this inning.
Right. That pitch is taken low and in. John Jay today has struck out twice. He's lined out, flied out, and grounded out. Chris Bosio, slow walk. No activity in the Cubs bullpen.
So the no activity means you have to deliver the message. If you're Chris Bosio, at some point you say, look at the guy warming up in the bullpen. Yeah, there isn't anybody. It's you. So we got to get this guy. You're the guy. And sometimes as a pitcher, a young pitcher especially, Dan, a pitching coach could start to sense that you're looking for help. And there are times where you have to get that message is you're not going to get any. You're the guy. And you have to challenge him to say, this is your inning. This is your game. Don't back off of that. No help's coming.
The 1-0 instead of check. It's Carpenter at second base. One ball and one strike, and now they start to get loose. Jay, that's fair. Into the Cardinal bullpen it goes. One run is in, that's Carpenter. Anderson is held up at third, and John Jay delivers again. He did it Sunday in extra innings, and he does it here this afternoon. It's 5-4 St. Louis.
The normal baseball rule is to guard the line late in games. This pitch down and in. Off the line is the first baseman. Not able to make the play. The dive from Rizzo comes up empty, and the Cardinals take the lead here at Wrigley.
Intentional walk here to Beltran, and Adrian Chambers will be the hitter. Again, this is the risk that you run when you pinch run for Matt Holliday, as the Cardinals did in the ninth inning with Chambers. Stayed in the game to play left. Now also you had Chambers make that catch in left on the run with his good speed. You don't know if Holliday makes that catch, and the news that we get about Molina, lower back spasms for Yachty, so no mention of oblique.
Nice.
We'll take that as a positive. Think about walks, and it'll drive a manager crazy, and it does so here in extra innings. 2 walks back to back. Carpenter, then a very good at bat by Brian Anderson. He drew a walk, putting Carpenter in scoring position, and John Jay delivers, and now it's Chambers with the bases loaded. Mott, he's ready to roll. Three walks in the inning. One of those intentional as Chambers takes a ball.
I would be in favor of Chambers taking a strike in this at bat, especially after ball one.
Bases loaded. Whoa, almost to the backstop. 2-0. And after seeing that, even more so.
I would go from being in favor of it to ordering it.
Alan Craig is on deck. 2 balls, no strikes on Chambers with the bases loaded. This will be pitch number 31 of the inning. This inning started with David Freese flying out to center. A strikeout of Descalso. Carpenter worked a walk. There's a low strike. Then the walk by Anderson and the double by John Jay. Intentional pass to Beltran. The 2-1 pitch. Chambers, a ground ball to short. Across the diamond they go. Out at first. Chambers almost beat it out. Mott coming in when we come back.
Jack Link's
John Jay, very similar to Sunday against Los Angeles. Remember, he was hitless in that game, and then he comes up with the hit of the day to give the Cardinals a win. And it could be the same kind of scenario here this afternoon.
Yeah, it's not always how many hits you get, it's when you get them. Jason Mott will face 2, 3, and 4 in the Cubs order. 38 saves on the season for Jason. Got loose a couple of times here this afternoon. What a win this would be if he can close this one out.
Ricky has a chance to pick up his 39th save, which would put him in the league lead. Ahead of the big names, Kimbrel, Papelbon, Hanrahan, Chapman. And at the top, it could be Mott if he gets the final 3 outs. Darwin Barney with a home run yesterday that tied it up. Late on that swing at 97 from Mott. Now, we talk a lot about his usage here, Rick. Is he in a different category when you think about bringing him back to back to back?
Yeah, I think he's conditioned to do just this. And he knows how to get loose in a way that he doesn't throw too many pitches in the bullpen.
Strikeout. And that's how we start the bottom of the 10th.
That's the job of a closer.
John Jay is our Budweiser player of the game. This was an outstanding catch he made against Darwin Barney back in the 3rd. And then he comes up with one of the biggest hits. A double to score Matt Carpenter. And it's our Budweiser player of the game, John Jay.
I'm just thankful that ball, and watching the replay for the 3rd time, did not hit the bullpen catcher as it was going into the corner. And you just imagine how bad of luck that would have been if that ball would have hit and kept Carpenter from scoring from second base. And it very nearly happened.
Rizzo in the hole, 0-2. It's been nothing but strikes here from Mott.
Here's what we're talking about. Not really guarding the line much. It gets past the first baseman, and watch out down in the bullpen. Just barely getting out of the way of that, and I don't even want to think about how frustrating that would have been.
Oh.
Really centering too, Dan, on the news that you heard over the PA system here in Wrigley Field that it appears that Yachty has back spasms. We don't have all the details about that yet, but it sounds a lot more hopeful than what we had feared, and we'll have to see what the night brings for Yachty.
The 1-2. Rizzo breaks his bat. We'll do it again. Shortstop right now for the Cardinals, Ryan Jackson. So you bring him off the bench, absolutely cold, to play short. That is his familiar spot. The 1-2. This is a little low and away. The shadows are part of this game now. The 2-2. Big rip that time by Rizzo. 98 on the gun from Mott. Mott was unavailable yesterday.
Ladies and gentlemen, for the Cardinals, now playing second base number 33, Daniel Salso.
So Descalzo has moved back to second base, with Jackson being the shortstop. So Carpenter out of this game. The Cardinals doing that purely for defensive reasons. They've upgraded shortstop and second base by that move. Not taking any chances here in the bottom of the 10th behind Jason Mott.
The 2-2. Leher is on deck. Got him. Strikeout of Rizzo. Old-fashioned hardball right there. 98 on the gun from Mott.
Up in the zone. Bayou.
These two have seen each other before. As of right now, Mott at 38. 1 out away from number 39. Leher earlier this year did hit a home run off of Jason Mott. The first pitch to him. Strike one.
A negative emotional swing yesterday, and so far a positive one here this afternoon.
So far, the key word.
Yep.
1 ball, 1 strike.
And we are so used to emotional swings at Wrigley Field. Cubs and the Cardinals. That 97 just missing.
Strike 2. 1-2. That pitch hit 99, and the Cardinal fans on their feet here at Wrigley. The 1-2 pitch. 99 again. Again, the Cardinals yesterday 1 strike away from a win. Twice could not put the Cubs away. They are 1 strike away here in game 2. The 2-2. Laher with 15 home runs this year. He's driven in 35 in his first full season here in the big leagues. Has not had a lot of playing time in the second half of the season. Mott trying to finish it off right here. The 2-2. Full count. Three-two pitch. It out of play. Three-two again. Got him! Mott struck him out, and the Cardinals win it in dramatic fashion, 5-4. Now that is a big win. Beltran tied it up. The Cardinals win it in extra innings. John Jay had not had a hit all day. He drives in the game-winning run. Mott, the save. Milwaukee now 2.5 out. And a dramatic win for St. Louis.
And really a team victory for the Cardinals. They got good work out of their bullpen. Beltran, the big home run. Jason Mott save number 39, and an emotional win for St. Louis. Here's 99 for you.
Post-game show, the Cat and Hungo coming up.
Dobbs.